Long Take Review, where four college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Chakchai Bankard, and I'm here with three podcasters well outside Ebbing, Missouri. First, he would have voted for Obama for a third term if he could have. It's PT McDough. How's it going, PT?
Thanks to Guillermo del Toro, we will always remember this year as the year men screwed up so badly, women started dating fish. I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing great. That's the perfect note to start this particular episode on, but we'll get to it. And when you least expect it, he has cunning ways of finding our weakest spot. It's Antonio Elefano. How have you been, Antonio?
We rip out so much of ourselves to be cured of things faster that we go bankrupt by the age of 30 and have less to offer each time we start with someone new. But to make yourself feel nothing so as not to feel anything, what a waste, Jen.
What a waste indeed. Well, hopefully this episode's not a waste. Finally, he walked weird across the stage, but he did it. It's Greg Cass. How are you doing, Greg?
Greg? I prefer Ladybird, or to call me by your name, I, Tanya. You know, today I had a phantom thread on my sweater, which drove me cocoa, and it may have just been my darkest hour. Thankfully, I passed 3 billboards while out with my baby driver, who is a fantastic woman. No, a Wonder Woman. And they reminded me of The Shape of Water and to get out of my mud-bound mood because a thread isn't Ragnarok. I'm really quite Logan lucky and should appreciate my good time before the big sick. I may even live to 2049. All right, I'm done.
Allow me a moment as I pick Greg's mic up off the ground. Oh, here's your mic, Greg. I think you dropped it. Okay. Those, dear listeners, were all references to the films and the ceremony of the 90th Academy Awards. That's right. We're here with another episode in which we look back at the Oscars past and share what we would want to change about the winners and nominees from that year. I feel like I don't have to mention what movies they were because Greg named most of them. But so the idea here, we call these Oscar Fairy Flashback episodes because the idea is that if we were in the good graces of an all-powerful Oscar Fairy, what would we want to change, right? So this is our kind of retrospective of a year in the Oscars. PT, if after listening to this episode, people want to remember us, that's an awkward reference to Remember Me, the song from Coco. They're not all winners, okay? What can they do?
Well, Greg already took my bit, but I'm just going to go with my script anyway. If you want a system of episodes interlinked within episodes interlinked within episodes interlinked, please follow the Long Take Review wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe the driver of our feed is Jen Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can catch the Long Take Review landing triple axles on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, and many more. We shall post on the beaches. We shall post on the landing grounds. We shall post on our social media accounts, which you can find at The Long Take Review on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Phantom Threads. Or find us on Letterboxd. You can see the post we make at the account at LTRpod, or use the hashtag LTRpod to track each of our individual darkest hours. Jen?
Thanks, PT. So I am going to turn things over to you, because as we all know, you're way more on top of this exercise than I am. So remind listeners, what are we up to when we say Oscar Fairy Flashback?
Okay, well, thanks, Jen. Usually when we here at the Long Take Review talk about the Oscars, we are looking forward to the upcoming Academy Awards, examining the race as it happens. But as Jen already mentioned, we like to occasionally step back and look at an earlier year in Oscar history, invoking the power of the all-powerful Oscar Fairy to wave our magic wands on the past with an Oscar Fairy Flashback. This is our 5th such episode, having previously covered the 86th through 89th Academy Awards. You can find them in your podcast feed, scattered from April 2024 through April 2025. This episode, we are moving forward another year to conclude our first sort of segment of 5 years. We'll be talking about the 90th Academy Awards, held on March 4th, 2018, and honoring the films of 2017. Before we start talking about changes, let's travel back and review an incredible year for the movies, which has a reputation for having somewhat questionable Oscar results. 6 different films won multiple awards. This is the most spreading of the wealth we've had in these episodes in terms of multiple winners. The big winner was The Shape of Water, which got 4 wins. It won Picture, Director for Guillermo del Toro, Score, and Production Design. Next was Dunkirk with 3 wins. It won film editing as well as what at the time was still the 2 sound categories, sound editing and sound mixing. And then we have 4 movies that got a pair each. 3 Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri got 2 wins for lead actress for Frances McDormand and supporting actor for Sam Rockwell. Darkest Hour, the Winston Churchill movie, got 2 wins, actor for Gary Oldman and makeup and hairstyling, one of the famed pairings of lead acting and makeup. Coco got 2 wins, animated feature and best original song for Remember Me. And Blade Runner 2049 also got 2 wins for visual effects and for cinematography. That cinematography win gave Roger Deakins a long-deserved victory on his 14th nomination, dating back to The Shawshank Redemption from 1994, halting his torture as the Diane Warren of shooting pictures. Now, normally, I think that looking at just that list of multiple winners, you'd say, like, that's solid. Like, I like some of those movies. Some of them maybe okay, like whatever. But like, that's not bad until you start looking at the other movies that were around that year. So some movies that won only 1 award include Get Out, which won original screenplay, Call Me by Your Name, which won adapted screenplay, and Phantom Thread, that won costume design. There's also a list of movies that got multiple nominations and were shut out entirely. That includes Ladybird, The Post, and Star Wars: The Last Jedi. The year also featured indie movies like The Florida Project, Good Time, The Big Sick, The Meyerowitz Stories, Columbus, and Logan Lucky. Some of those got reference in Greg's opening without even some of them being nominated for things. Plus, there were other beloved franchise movies like Logan, Thor Ragnarok, Spider-Man Homecoming, the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Wonder Woman, and the Lego Batman movie. Just looking at that list of movies, it's no surprise this year is discussed as being one of the best of the century for movies. Now, my fellow long take reviewers, what are your personal memories of the year, both in general and all these movies that came out? What was going on for you in 2017? Greg, you're just coming back to our Oscar Fairy Flashback after having to miss the last couple. So I'll ask you first, what was going on for you in 2017?
First, just a point of clarification. When I said Logan Lucky in my intro, I actually was referencing Logan and Logan Lucky. So that's a safer.
Well done.
So this is a really funny moment for me. And I was looking at, the list and some of the things, and I realized this is still before I get really obsessed with the Oscars personally. And so just to map this out and to preview next Oscar Fairy episode, this is the year I don't do very well. And then next year I commit to seeing all the Best Picture nominees. And then I'm like, you know what? Green Book sounds like garbage. I'm not going to see Green Book, and don't watch Green Book. And then after that is the start of Greg watches every nominated movie every year. And so we're on the cusp of that. And I was really looking at this list of movies when PT sent it over, and I was like, I did not see like any of these. Like what happened? Well, and I have caught up on a lot of them since, but I know, like, for example, Call Me by Your Name and Phantom Thread, I remember seeing those like 2 or 3 years ago because I was like, these are ridiculously important movies I haven't seen. And then I was like mapping it out, and I realized that in September of this year was when it was announced the college I worked at was closing. So I was kind of busy this fall doing personal like job market and like, oh crap, like I need to find a new job and a way to provide for my family. So whether that's accurate or not, I'm going to use that as my excuse for having missed a lot of these when they came out. And I will also confess that I'm still missing more of these than I would like. And there are some perennial letterbox watch lists for Greg on this list. Like, I, Tonya is the perfect example where I'm like, I love Allison Janney. Margot Robbie's great. Can't wait to get to that one. And then it's Saturday night and you're trying to pick what to watch. And you're like, I don't know if I'm in a Tonya mood, right? And so there are a few that fall into that category for me here, despite, coming late to Ladybird and absolutely loving Ladybird, coming late to Phantom Thread and absolutely loving Phantom Thread. Like, there's some really... All of my comments don't relate to the quality of the movies. They are Greg's personal life got in the way, but there's a lot here that I've really come to cherish, and I am sure I will be promoting some of them tonight. Antonio, did you work at a college that closed in 2017, or did you have a normal life?
Well, 2017 was the year my youngest son, Gabriel, was born. So that happened in June. So my movie book going also wasn't quite as robust as the years following. But I do remember it being a really incredible year for movies. And I remember, every year, but even pre-Letterboxd, I would rank the movies at the end of the year. So I just went back to my document, to the 2017 document, to take a look at what my rankings were. Because in 2017, it's interesting because I actually would probably reorder them now, reorder at least 3 through 6, but 1 through 6 were my absolute favorites. And that's a unusual number of movies to say. It's just like, these are the top things. But for me, in 2017, I had Call Me by Your Name as 1, then Ladybird, which I remember watching with my little sister when she was visiting from out of town, that being a very nice film going memory. 3, I had The Shape of Water. 4, The Big Sick. 5, The Florida Project. And 6, Phantom Thread. I would reorder 3 through 6. I would change that order, but 1 and 2 would probably stay the same for me. PT, what about you?
I was very excited about this year. I enjoyed that sort of mix of those franchise movies. I feel like most of them they all were very good. Some of them were like excellent, and I really connected with them. And yeah, there were these the artier movies. I had this problem, and I don't know if we've talked about this directly before, but this era of Star Wars movies coming out in December was a real issue for me, because then I would only go see the Star Wars movies like multiple times in December, and I would miss some Oscar movies. So Call Me by Your Name. And
what a weirdo. Am I right, guys?
Seriously.
Weirdo. You go once and that's it.
Yeah. You wait. It'll be on TV eventually. You don't have to go see it in the theater. So yeah, I definitely didn't see Call Me by Your Name until like recently, in the last couple of years. And I think even Phantom Thread it wasn't until it was rentable on TV. That may have been before the Oscars, but I think it might have been after that. So yeah, I had some gaps. I looked at my list as well, and I was like, oh gosh, there's just movies I didn't include, but I hadn't seen them yet. So yeah, this was a great time. This was the fall of when all of you lovely people had already had children or were having more children. I was just beginning my relationship with Jasmine. So we were going to the movies, and that like adds a nice element to some of this. Although the one that stands out is going to see The Last Jedi, which does not necessarily help with these other movies that are there, but that just reinforces I kept going to see that movie in the theaters. But yeah, I mean, that's sort of where I was, for better or for worse. The place that I was working did not close down then. It hasn't happened yet. Hopefully it doesn't. And yeah, I could just focus on these movies. Jen, what's going on with you?
The thing that astounded me when I went back and looked at the list of movies from this year was kind of how bountiful it was. This is, if I were to ever use the phrase like they were all bangers, like this would probably be the year for that. Because even a movie that, wasn't as, beloved or over the moon, something like The Post, I remember going to the theater and watching that with my mom and having a great time and being like, Steven Spielberg, so great. So I'd say that like, this was a great year for me. This was, in terms of my Oscar obsessed timeline, this is still pre me really getting deep into listening to podcasts about the Oscars or really tracking the Oscars year round. This is still, we're at the phase of like, I definitely saw all of these Best Picture nominees before the Oscars happened. Though this is still the era where things don't go to VOD as quickly. And so I remember scrambling like the week before the Oscars, like just earlier today, I went back to my like Apple TV library. And I'm like, oh yeah, Call Me by Your Name. I really watched that at home, like right before, like I want to say like a day before the Oscars. And I remember watching Get Out at home as well. And so I was still in the phase where I wasn't fully committed to the theatrical experience in the way that I am now, but it was also very tricky to watch things at home. Like in that the period at this time, the period between when Oscar nominations came out and when the Oscar ceremony happened was a really stressful period of like, how am I going to see all these movies? Because back then I used to, instead of trying to pregame and predict what was going to get nominated, I just waited until the nominations were out. So this is partway through kind of my formulation as an Oscar fan. And what's the other thing? But I was still very competitive about trying to predict the winners. And so, but I mostly did that through reading articles, pretty, cramming. There was a lot of cramming before the Oscar ceremony at this time for me, as opposed to now where it's like a full-time, I live and breathe this stuff all year round. But yeah, so that's kind of where I was. My daughter was, I think, 2 at the time, so I was also busy with that. But when I looked at this list, I'm like, oh great, I've seen most of these movies.
That's good. I will say, like, because this feels like, I guess, the best place to bring it up. There's no good place. It's worth noting this is the year of Me Too. That's sort of the end of the first year of the first Trump presidency. And there was the big article expose that came out about Harvey Weinstein. And that led to, Me Too already existed, but it got kind of mainstreamed and really entered into the discourse as a thing with people sharing stories. So it had a pretty big impact on these awards. There's one actor who was nominated, who I think I'm sure we'll be discussing, for, basically just for being a last-minute replacement to an exiled performer. Kevin Spacey got replaced in a movie really last minute, and his replacement got nominated, Christopher Plummer. And a former winner in Casey Affleck was unwelcomed back on the stage to present the lead. Last year's lead actor wasn't welcome back to present lead actress, and they shuffled things around. So there was that impact. Somehow, none of this ended up affecting the best animated short film category, but that's another story for another day. Antonio. All right, so let's talk about the Oscar Fairy rules and get into maybe actually making some changes. For listeners new to our Oscar Fairy flashbacks, the rules are as follows. We each have points to spend on altering the slate of nominees and winners. In a below-the-line category, those being the technical and production crew categories, as well as specialty feature film ones like international, animated, and documentary, we can swap out a nominee by spending 1 point. Swapping out a nominee in an above-the-line category, which is screenplay, acting, or directing, requires 2 points. And swapping out a Best Picture nominee is 3 points. To change the winner within a given category is double. It's double those points. So it's 2 points to change the winner below the line, 4 points above the line, and 6 points if you want to change Best Picture. So if, for example, someone wanted to have the live action remake of Beauty and the Beast become the Best Picture winner of the year 2017, it would cost them a total of 9 points. 3 points to swap it with, say, The Post, so it became a nominee, and then 6 points to have, again, in one of the most celebrated years of cinema, Beauty and the Beast become the Best Picture winner. #OscarsSoBell. In terms of points, we each get 10 at the start of a New Year's discussion. Any points an individual does not spend in an episode are carried over to the subsequent Oscar Fairy Flashback appearance. We have a lot of points in the mix for this episode. Antonio retained a whopping 7 points, so he will start with 17 this go around. I enter this episode with 4 extra points, giving me 14. Prodigal Oscar manipulator Greg returns with 3 points left over from his last appearance, giving him 13 for this episode. And Jen spent all of her points last time, so she has the standard 10 this time around. We allocate the points individually, but we are not competing against each other to build our own team. Instead, we are working together on building one collective, collaborative Oscar Fairy slate. All changes must be made with full agreement and consensus of the group. Given the strength of the movies this year and the strong opinions we have about them, I've long been looking forward to see how this would turn out. So let's see how this goes, and let's sprinkle some dust. Antonio, I think I was going to turn to you first to start the discussion. Since you do have the most points, where would you like to go to begin talking about where changes can be made?
Let's start off with a big one. Let's start with Best Actor. So here, Gary Oldman won. I love Gary Oldman. I've had this conversation with PT many a time about how actors often win for films because they've paid their dues, and they don't end up winning their Oscar for the films that ultimately, when you view their career, that you think like, oh, that's the one that you associate with that actor. And so Al Pacino is sort of a classic example of this, right? He won for Scent of a Woman. He should have won for literally anything else. But I think Gary Oldman is also perhaps an example of this as well. Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy, PT and I have chatted about how that's a superior performance, a superior movie. Timothée Chalamet had won most of the critics awards leading into this, but he's young, right? He was obviously, this was his big breakout role. And, the argument often goes that actors need to pay their dues. And so, he was passed over here. Gary Oldman won. I think that the role was better. The movie was better. Timothée Chalamet has obviously been in a lot of things since. He almost won an Oscar this past year for A Complete Unknown. I think that no project since Call Me by Your Name, including A Complete Unknown, has featured him and his gifts as an actor as effectively as this movie. So for me, and this is a category that includes Daniel Day-Lewis in Phantom Thread, which also was incredible because Daniel Day-Lewis is always incredible. But when I think to this year, I think of Call Me by Your Name, and I think of this performance at the center of it. It doesn't work without getting the absolute right actor to play this really crucial, tricky role. And so, I would put I propose Timothée Chalamet over Gary Oldman, with the understanding that Gary Oldman will get his when we make our way back to some of those other films. What are your thoughts on Best Actor?
I just appreciate how much that was phrased like a threat to Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman will get his when the time comes.
So is Tinker Tailor before or after this? It's got to be before.
So it is before, but we could discuss more later. There was some general discussion, not to undermine your earlier setup, Greg, that you were about to enter your phase, but that we might jump back before going forward. We might do the 5 preceding years and give more time before we go forward towards and into the 2020s. So Tinker Tailor seems a little bit more on the horizon than maybe it feels right now. I do just want to note, not to be like issuing corrections. I trust Antonio about the critics' choice. Antonio is always more on top of all of the precursors, but I am looking at the chart of the sort of major precursors, the Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, the Guild Awards, and the BAFTAs. And Gary Oldman swept those. Like Gary Oldman was like, and actually all of the actors who won swept all of them except for the musical comedy category at the Globes, but they won the drama. The leads won, the drama one. So it's interesting.
The guy playing Churchill won the BAFTA?
I know, it's hard to believe.
God, this is crazy.
He could have been up against the guy playing Churchill in Dunkirk. So, who knows what they would have done. It's just a recording. Anyway, so it's interesting that there was an overwhelming sense for all of these actors that like, these are the 4 who are going to win, when I think it's quite possible we're going to change all 4 of them today. Which is to say, I love Gary Oldman. I think Gary Oldman did a great job in Darkest Hour, a movie that is good, but not that good in comparison to all of these other movies. Everything Antonio said about Timothée Chalamet, I think is absolutely correct. My stumbling block here is that I kind of think Daniel Kaluuya should win for Get Out. Because everything you said about this movie only works if this person in the center of it gives the performance they give, I think is also true for Get Out. And I don't, I don't, this is why I'm like, I don't quite know, like, I feel like both of them are worthy here. But I'm not immediately ready to sign off on Timothy winning. When I'm like, but what about Daniel Kaluuya? But Daniel Kaluuya has got to win in the future, but we don't know that in 2017, but we do know that now. And then would he have won for Judas and the Black Messiah if he had won here? So there's lots of dominoes that are potentially, around this question. But Daniel Kaluuya is really good in Get Out, and he's very crucial to that movie as well. So that's my initial reaction. I'm not saying no. I am just saying that's my thought. All due respect to Gary Oldman and Daniel Day-Lewis and Denzel Washington, who does a great job in Roman J. Israel Esquire. I don't want to take his nomination away, but I'm not going to mention him again. And I don't think anyone else will either.
Is that a movie that existed? That came out? That's an actual film?
Yeah, written and directed by famed Andor contributor David Gilroy. Or Dan Gilroy.
Dan Gilroy, yeah.
All right, so I definitely... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, mine was a dumb joke.
So I definitely agree that we take this win away from Gary Oldman. I'm in full support of that, because this to me is one of the major red flags that this is a year in which we are still very much steeped in what pundits refer to as the old Academy, right? It didn't matter at all how good or not chronologically nonsensical The Darkest Hour was. All that mattered was Gary Oldman transformed into a major historical figure, and the Academy lost their mind, right? And that, I mean, obviously, like what we said earlier was true in terms of like Gary Oldman is beloved, and he has like an amazing filmography. He was due. People wanted to give him this Oscar for sure. But I think to me, that's the tie between the makeup, prosthetics, transformation, famous person, like all of that stuff in terms of like being stereotypical Academy behavior. This is like really, really, really emblematic. One of the best examples of that. So I say we definitely do this. But yeah, for me, it's actually a three-way race between Timothée Chalamet, Daniel Day-Lewis, and Daniel Kaluuya. I think all three of them are amazing. What's interesting is for Timothée Chalamet in particular, like if Antonio wants this, I fully support this. If we just want to move on. But the question I want to ask, what is the butterfly effect if he did actually win in this year?
Mm-hmm.
Because so much of this year's Oscar narrative for his performance in A Complete Unknown, right? Think about his SAG speech of like, I really want to be one of the greats, right? Like I'm committed to this. Like I'm like people might think that I'm too high on my own supply, but like I want to show that I really want to work at this and get this. Does the loss here fuel him, or does a win here change his trajectory as an actor?
Jen, what I will say is, can you be one of the greats if you've only won one?
So right, but it's like this would have been his so early in his career.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Like, would that have hurt him more than helped him?
It's a very good question, and potentially just creates like the ripples of this are potentially creating like an inherent flaw in the exercise. Like, if you go back and you change history, like how much of the future do we want to try to sort of predict out from there? Similar to like how much do we want to assume that what we are deciding now, the changes we've made in the last 4 years, the last 4 episodes of these are true. And that's happened so that it's like, it's time. We should finally get a Mexican director to win Best Director, like because we've been taking them away from these talented filmmakers. So that's a later conversation, I know. But I think that's fair. I think that's true for both Chalamet, really Timothée Chalamet, also a little bit for Daniel Kaluuya. I also think Daniel Day-Lewis is incredible in Phantom Thread. In most years, I would be like, yeah, it's got to be him. But he'd already won 3 times. Like, it would, cool to put him up with Katharine Hepburn. It wouldn't be unearned, but and I think also, he's crucial to that movie being as effective as it is. But I came in just sort of being like, okay, good for you, Daniel Day. Let's go. Let's look at these other 2. I will just note, because this is crazy, this was only Gary Oldman's 2nd Oscar nomination. So despite his long career and despite everybody loving him, he was nominated for Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and then later nominated for Mank, a movie we all remember and think about frequently. Greg, what are your thoughts on lead actor?
Well, here's my shallow take. I do think that he is trying to be supreme like Marty Supreme, and he'll get there. To Jen's very valid question, and Jen, just so I get credit in this boardroom, I was going to ask that question of Antonio before you asked it. So I get credit as the man. I clearly hashtag you just got me too'd. Spirit of the year. What are you going to do? So I would say that it's hard to know what him selling out looks like. And I say this with all love and due appreciation, but like an actor of his age getting his Oscar that early, selling out looks like, oh, I'll do the giant sci-fi blockbuster movie. Oh, you want to do a Wonka prequel? I'll do it. Sure. And I honestly, it sounds like I'm slamming the guy, but I honestly think he's found the kind of perfect balance of one for them, one for me. And I don't see that changing, right? Because he's living that kind of playbook in such a good way. So I support doing this early in his career because I do think that he would be as hungry for a second in there. Well, and again, what I've loved Chalamet in, it's like Chalamet would still answer the phone for Greta Gerwig. Chalamet would still be in The Bones and All, right? Like, I like the weird Chalamet, and, you know, maybe he wouldn't commit so hard to Bob Dylan if in this alternative future you're creating, but I think it's fine. I also need to shoehorn in the circumstances in which I saw Phantom Thread, which are that I saw it. It's one of, so I co-host a podcast called Through the Glass Columns with my friend Tyler. It's Tyler's one of his all-time favorite movies. Tyler has fantastic taste. You would love to have him here instead of me. But it's like, I saw it was going to play in 35 millimeter at the beloved Coolidge Corner Theater in December that year. So I was like, you know, Tyler, we should go. I've never seen it. It's your favorite. Like, let's go. And it was like, yes, perfect. And he's like, oh, my wife wants to come. Great. Like, the three of us are locked and loaded. That is like on I think the Thursday after classes get out. And I have like way too much free time. So I'm like, what? Spider-Man No Way Home followed by Phantom Thread? Let's do this. Amazing. Oh, wait. Why should I stop there? I know. I'll go to the Matrix Revolutions a half hour after the Phantom Thread. So I had this ridiculous movie day, which has so deeply tainted the Phantom Thread that I can't even discuss it meaningfully. Like, I remember being awed by the performance. I remember being awed by the nominated costumes or the winning costumes. And it was like so great. My friend's like, wasn't that like so spiritually moving? I'm like, I got to go see Neo and Trinity. Sorry. Like, we'll talk some other time. So this is me confessing my movie going failures, but it's a little hard for me to judge Daniel Day-Lewis objectively. So, gosh, I'm rambly tonight. I will just say I approve this change. It's all yours, Antonio. Good luck spending points that I no longer have to because this was on my list.
Well, it seems like this is what we're going to have to go back to. As a point of clarification, PT's right. Like the Guild Awards all went to Gary Oldman, and then the aggregate like Critics Awards went to Gary Oldman, but the City Critics Awards, which I always paid, which I love looking at from like when they start coming out in December, like New York, LA, DC, Chicago, Boston, just to name a few, right? All went to Timothée Chalamet, and that's what created so much momentum because he was just so young, and just the idea that could this actually happen, and then eventually halted when we got to like a certain point in the race, and they realized like, oh, it's good, it's Gary Oldman. But all right, I mean, like, I understand the arguments for Kaluuya, for Daniel Day-Lewis. It's not moving me off of Chalamet, but we can come back to this one since you know but we're in agreement that it's between these three.
I mean, I would even say two. I mean, I love Daniel Day-Lewis, and in another year, I think he would be walking away with this, but just given that I think all three of these are towering, and he already has 3 Oscars, there's a little bit of like, okay, like there's other places we can give the Phantom Thread a little more love. And so in terms of pausing and coming back, you know, part of it is me thinking like, you know, we'll have to decide. Like my instinct is, you know, I said earlier that this year did really spread the wealth. We might want to do that even more, or at least focus the wealth on some of the other movies that we like. And I don't want to lock in an answer here because I think that might change how we feel in some other categories when it's suddenly like, wait, like we changed that, we gave this actor, but do we want to still give that movie, etc. So I think we sort of put a pin in this for now. I think we're all in agreement of changing. We have a couple people. I think it's more just, are we going to let momentum take over for one of these movies? Are we going to try to spread the wealth? And I think, I don't think we're that far apart. If we could treat this like some sort of mergers and acquisitions discussion.
I just want to throw in that I also I love Get Out. I still reference Get Out when I teach a lot, and it's still relevant. Like, kids are still watching it even this many years later. But I will say, to me, I want to throw awards at Jordan Peele. It's not Kaluuya for me. So I am also remaining unconvinced by the argument. I would go Chalamet over Kaluuya, just because I ranted and raved but didn't address that specific point.
Okay.
We are on record being a very pro Timmy podcast. Just saying.
Fresh off his LTR win.
I look at him every recording. I have my Complete Unknown IMAX commemorative ticket right in front of me.
And how does it feel?
It feels so good.
Okay. Wow.
Greg, you have the
well, actually, just
for a while.
I also look at Jen and I with Kelly Marie Tran. So this is like a very my podcast studio decor really matches this year. So yeah, that's it.
Well, Greg, I was going to turn to you to say, all right, if we put a pin in actor, is there a category you would like to discuss a potential change in one nomination or winner?
Listeners, this is your old buddy Greg talking. I kind of gave this away to our fellow recordees before we started, but I will say I had a lot of trouble this year because every movie I loved, I was like, I need to make a change. I need to get this movie I love so much into the category. And then I looked at who was in that category and who won, and I was like, oh no, I can't do that. And so the example of this I gave, and Antonio just confirmed this when he read his list. I loved The Big Sick. The Big Sick is one of my favorite movies. I really think that just nails the humor and the pathos. It's so perfect. And I was like, that's it. Kumail and Emily, let's give them the screenplay. Let's let them get that position. And then I looked and saw it was Jordan Peele for Get Out who won. I was like, I can't touch it. I can't touch it. So I had this over and over again, and I won't list them all because that's bad content, but I had this over and over again. So when I really look at this list of films I loved this year, number one for me is Ladybird, and will always hold my heart. I think Ladybird is an incredible achievement, and we'll have some discussions, I think, as the night goes on about how we recognize these kind of first timers, because how do we is it too soon to give Greta Gerwig all the awards? So the discussion I will open up is, and I say this with a lot of pain, I want to talk about Laurie Metcalf winning Best Supporting Actress, because I think that she is absolutely incredible in Lady Bird, and I don't think Lady Bird works without Laurie Metcalf being so good. And Saoirse, I think it's established on air, I love Saoirse a lot, but you need that dynamic, and you need the kind of beautiful pain that Laurie Metcalf goes through. And she feels like one of those actresses, and I say this with all love and respect, Lady Bird was her shot at leveling up and getting out of sitcom world. And I think we missed how good she was. I have also probably never established on this podcast, I am the hugest fan of West Wing. I love the West Wing so much. And to come after CJ Craig, aka the Jackal, aka Allison Janney, for her Oscar really bums me out. But as I established tonight, I have not seen I, Tonya. And so I would like to honor Laurie Metcalf, a.k.a. that lady from Roseanne, a.k.a. Andy's mom from Toy Story, which I forget until my kids put it on every time. I want to give Best Supporting Actress to Laurie Metcalf.
I am fully in support of that. I love Allison Janney as well. But when it came to the particular roles here, I mean, it's understandable why Allison Janney I think ultimately overtook Laurie Metcalf. It is a very showy role, and supporting actress tends to favor like villains who are like with really juicy lines. But I don't think that it rises to the level of the nuance and the pathos of Laurie Metcalf. And I don't think that Allison Janney is as essential to I, Tonya as Laurie Metcalf is to Ladybird. I will say about Laurie Metcalf, she's also a renowned theater actress. She won 2 Tony Awards, Best Actress for the Tonys. I actually just saw in Pasadena A Doll's House Part 2, which is what she won her most recent Tony for. And so she's supposed to be incredible on the stage. I believe it. I fully support this. I will say one thing. I fully support Laurie Metcalf as the winner of this. I want to ask for your thoughts, though, Greg, for you in particular, since we're both big Sick fans. Holly Hunter in The Big Sick, I would very much support a nomination for Holly Hunter. And the other person who was snubbed from this category, who I thought would have been a lot of fun, I think that she won either LA or New York, was Tiffany Haddish for Girls Trip. I think when people think back to this year in movie going and they think back to Tiffany Haddish, it was like this was her moment. This was her big breakout, and like deservedly so. I watched Girls Trip only after she won like that Critics Award, thinking like, oh, how good could this be? And then I watched it and I thought like, oh, that's pretty great. So. This is a really tough category, but I think ultimately for me, I was rooting for Laurie Metcalf all the way, and it kind of broke my heart when she lost this category. So I'm with you, Greg.
I think the only evidence you need to provide is that scene with her and Saoirse Ronan in the car.
Yeah,
that's just an all-timer of a scene. She's so vulnerable and yet so true to character, who's clearly like emotionally stunted. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just it's a major cathartic moment for the whole film. Like, yeah. So I have no problem with that.
This was, I was not as locked in really until even doing this podcast. I never got as locked in as all of you in terms of trying to see everything and having strong opinions about everything by Oscar night. But by Oscar night, I had not seen I, Tonya. I have since seen I, Tonya. Allison Janney is very good in it, but very good's not good enough this year. But the night of the Oscars, I was rooting for Laurie Metcalf. So I do support this. Just for the listeners who maybe aren't staring at the Wikipedia page like I am, Allison Janney won for I, Tonya. Laurie Metcalf nominated for Ladybird. Octavia Spencer nominated for The Shape of Water. Mary J. Blige nominated for Mudbound. And then the only hesitation for me about Laurie Metcalf is Leslie Manville for Phantom Thread, because she is excellent in that movie. And she is it's such a temperature change whenever she's around. She's exceptional in that role. Again, like most years, I would be like with a bullet. Like the first change would be to get Leslie Manville in. That said, I think there are other places we can, or at least I would like to reward Phantom Thread, and I would like Laurie Metcalf to go ahead with this for Ladybird. So I do sign off on it. I do endorse it. In terms of other people who did not make it, I don't know if I want to actually make any changes, because that's a solid lineup. And I feel bad because like the first person I would get rid of is probably Mary J. Blige, who is good in Mudbound, and it's also cool that she got nominated for this and for Song the same year. I will just note, I did have Allison Williams for Get Out, which I think is another sort of performance that like is needed in that movie. And like, if she's not doing, if she's not the person that she was with the reputation she was and going the places she does in that movie, does it get as far as it goes? I don't know. But not enough to, I think, actually replace any of the people here. But yeah, I mean, Greg, I sign off as well on Laurie Metcalf.
Well, Laurie Metcalf won.
Boom. I love it.
And I haven't been here in a while. PT, you're recording my points and everything? Okay, good.
So that was four points from you for that change.
Since we're already talking about actresses in Ladybird, I'm going to take us over just a quick hop, skip, and a jump to actress in a leading role. Yeah. And I move to make Saoirse Ronan the winner of that category.
Oof.
I don't know if I need to explain my reasoning. She's amazing.
Let's just get it on record again that it's a crime that Saoirse Ronan has not won an Academy Award at this point. And we can debate which year, but like it's insane that she's one of our most talented and hasn't. And like when you hear her on talk shows, she might just kind of walk away, right? Like she's got a good, fulfilling life and might just go raise her kids and have a happy life. So it scares me that we might never get her one. So Jen, apologies for the interruption. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's fine. I guess Frances McDormand, regardless of how you feel about Three Billboards as a film, I do feel like her performance is very strong. So this is not necessarily a knock against Frances McDormand. Frances McDormand has, I believe, at least 3 Oscars. So I don't feel bad about taking this away from her, if that makes sense.
Yes, this was her second acting Oscar. She now has 3. She won for Fargo. She later wins for Nomadland, and she won for this. She also has a 4th Oscar as the producer of Nomadland. So she currently has 4. This would be taking one away. We do have listeners to the podcast who are it's one person. It's Anthony, who loves Three Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Anthony, welcome. You're probably going to have a terrible time because I think that is one that is a movie that stands out. I think that for me, that movie and Darkest Hour are the ones that got a bunch of nominations, got a couple of wins, were in the Best Picture race, where it was like, this doesn't hit me as much as it does all these other movies. Again, like I didn't see Three Billboards until prepping for this episode because I'd heard very mixed to leaning towards negative things. I liked it more than I thought I would. But I do understand why people reacted negatively, especially in the moment, in contrast to these movies. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough night for Three Billboards here on the recording because I don't think Frances McDormand will stand up here. My only thing, I want Saoirse Ronan to win, and I agree. My only thing is a 2-pronged thinking too big, and I'm just going to say it, and then you can say, okay, PT, shut up, and then we'll move on. Shouldn't she really win later for Little Women? And that would be instead of Renee Zellweger in Judy, which is whatever. So it's sort of like, wouldn't that make more sense? And like, if we were to change this is crazy. But again, I'm not really advocating for it, but I do want to say it. Meryl Streep's gotten a lot of heat in these. Like, we've taken a lot of nominations from her. She's been an easy target. I think that there's like a general agreement, and by general I mean, this is Antonio and I keep talking about this, that like her 3rd win is for Iron Lady, right? Like in her career, and that's sort of like, why are we doing this? She's better in The Post than she is in The Iron Lady. Like, The Post is actually a great movie. This would be a great place to reward The Post, would be to give it to Meryl Streep. I don't actually want to do that. I want to give it to Saoirse Ronan for Ladybird. But I did want to at least say that and put that out there, that those are the dominoes I could see in the wide picture would be, no, give Saoirse later and then give Meryl's 3rd here, and that's balances the universe. Then take away Iron Lady, and I think there's someone I want to give the Iron Lady one to. But whatever, I sign off on Saoirse.
To quote what you said earlier, can you really be one of the greats if you've only won one? That's my response.
Good point.
So we can't have a double standard.
That's a great point.
And also, it's just Saoirse Ronan. It's just the best performance in the slate, right? Like, I mean, I love Frances McDormand. I adore Frances McDormand. I really didn't like this Three Billboards, and was not rooting for her to win here. But in almost every other context, I would root for Frances McDormand. But Saoirse Ronan was incredible. I wholeheartedly agree. Also for Meryl Streep, Julie and Julia is probably where I would have given that 3rd Oscar over Sandra Bullock in The Blind Side. So anyway, but I'm with I'm Saoirse Ronan all the way, and I assume Greg is too, but I don't want to speak for him.
Well, I'm just appreciating Antonio grabbing that low-hanging fruit, saying we're going to take it away from The Blind Side. I like this point. So just because I can humble brag, I was in the front yard of Louisa May Alcott's house earlier today, and I do think Little Women is a worthier performance and one film that is completely underrated. And I will say a lot of in my prep, as I thought about Ladybird and Greta Gerwig, I kind of agreed a lot about Greta Gerwig. Obviously, she gets some laudits when it comes to Barbie, but Little Women is the one that I do not understand how the Academy missed, because that was instantly in a I will watch this every year till I die category. And I don't do that with a lot of movies, despite my reputation for being a letterboxed addict. So I wholly support this. I will wholly support giving Saoirse her second win for Little Women within that category. I will say there is an emerging trend, and I think PT just hit upon this, but I'll name it, where we're saying this seems to be a year that really mixes like fresh breakthrough performances that are ignored in favor of older established nominations and actors who were due, quote unquote. And so taking away from Meryl, I had not seen The Post until this week, and I really enjoyed it. I was shocked. There's a very small list of Spielberg movies I had not gotten to yet, and this was one of them. So I was really glad I watched it. She is really good, and it's a good part within this kind of crazy process-oriented piece. But I'm still going to vote Saoirse as just like, it is a well, now we're too deep into recording for me to be honest. I think it is a Mikey Madison style performance. Like, we just saw a breakthrough get the Best Picture nominee. And I feel like because Lady Bird is a little more chaste, it didn't get that bump of like, but she was so brave. She took off all her clothes, right? And so like, I do feel like there's this like edge to it that is like she's still a kid, whereas Mikey Madison is an adult, right? And so I think this part got ignored in that regard, and I want to see that rectified. So especially because I don't have to spend any points on it. Yeah, take all Jen's points. Who cares? She's gonna spend them all on something anyway. Let her spend it on something worthwhile.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I will say for the young ingenue coming in and yanking away the established performers trophy. This was Saoirse Ronan's third Oscar nomination, which just goes to show she started getting nominated incredibly young in 2008 for Atonement, and then Brooklyn in 2016, and then this nomination, and now win, according to us, sort of locking it in. I just want to say, as a little bit of cleanup, this is a stack category. I think all the nominees are good. Just to get them out there for folks not looking. New winner Saoirse Ronan for Lady Bird. Old winner Frances McDormand for 3 Billboards. Sally Hawkins, Shape of Water. Margot Robbie, the titular I, Tonya, and then Meryl Streep in The Post. I did. There was no room. There was no one to take out. I did want to get Vicky Creeps. Or Creps. I'm not certain exactly how to pronounce that. I apologize if Creeps is just offensive. From Phantom Thread, the lead actress in Phantom Thread. There's no one to take out. It would probably have to be Frances McDormand, but that seems like insult to injury to then also replace her / points I don't really want to spend. And I also want to shout out Brooklyn Prince, who is the little girl that's the lead character in the Florida Project, who is incredible. If there was a best young performer Oscar, she won a bunch of young performer awards from various critics groups, and I think a BAFTA as well in that category, or at least she was nominated. She lost one of those to Timothée Chalamet, which seems rough because she was like 7 and Timothée Chalamet was like 19, but whatever.
Awkward.
It seems like a weird matchup. But anyway, she's really, really good. She's incredible. There's no space. I don't think there's no one I really want to replace, but I just wanted to shout them out as potential people. Again, we need 10, a list of 10 for the acting categories this year, in addition to Best Picture.
My closing thoughts on the category, because I won't get to talk about it again, is I think the weakest here is actually Sally Hawkins, but I agree that it's hard to take her out for any of those outside candidates because she is really important and really great in Shape of Water. The thing I need to say, because I won't be able to squeeze it in anywhere, Sally Hawkins is in a like nutso horror movie right now that I happened to see last night, and it like really messed me up, and it's like an insane performance that happens to have these weird thematic connections that it makes it a perfect double feature with Shape of Water, which I also think Guillermo del Toro would endorse. Jen, I sometimes miscast you as our squeamish person. Do not see this movie because it is not for the squeamish. It is the gnarliest thing I have seen in theaters in a long time. But Sally Hawkins is really incredible in it.
Duly noted. So I had actually heard buzz about this, that a lot of people were comparing it to Toni Collette in Hereditary. That it's going to be ultimately underappreciated, but really elite performance in a horror movie.
I think that's right, except this movie wishes it was as good as Hereditary. Like, I think it's like 2 notches down from Hereditary, so it won't break through, but that's not inaccurate. And,
is it called Bring Her Back?
Yeah.
Apparently this is the only movie Sally Hawkins has done after Wonka.
Well, and it's why she wasn't in Paddington 3, I believe, where if you attended Paddington 3, you suddenly were like, that's Emily Mortimer. That's not Sally Hawkins. Is this like an aunt or a sister? And no, they just pretend you can't tell the difference between those two actresses. But it's a wild performance. And I want to share with the podcast audiences, the like second scene has a penis in it. And I was at a screening of this movie and I got a text message that my son needed something at school. So the penis was on screen when I got this text message, and I instantly stood up and walked out. And I'm horrified for my reputation that everybody in that theater was like, wow, that guy can't handle it. Like he's just gone. Like he came to the gnarly horror movie with a terrible reputation, saw one penis and said, not for me. But I did go back and I saw it, and it was really, it's hard to watch at times, but if you're into the Hereditary, Midsommar kind of A24, what a great studio brand of horror. It's a great one to go see.
Did you wait outside the theater at the end of the movie to talk to everyone just to be like, it wasn't the penis. It was my son. It wasn't the penis.
Like I can see a penis. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
I have no problem seeing the penis. I just want you to know that.
I actually like seeing them. I mean, not like, but...
All right. Incredible. All right. Well,
wait. I just realized that none of us actually explained why Saoirse Ronan is so amazing in Lady Bird. So I do feel like we have to make a quick comment about that. And I guess for me, as I didn't have a chance to rewatch it just for this, but when I think back to her performance, it really is that her like she manages to create a character that is both very like kind of irritating but also very lovable, and she just kind of nails that sort of angsty teen. Like that performance could have with any other actress really could have been very, very cliche, you know what I mean? Like, and so I feel like that's, for me, that's kind of the achievement. I mean, in general it's amazing and she's amazing, but if I had to put a pin on it, that's what it would be.
They're your points, so I think it's good to leave it at that. I will just say, she's incredible because she's Irish, but Jen still likes her. So for mine, I want to stay above the line. Don't worry, I have some below the line tinkering to do if and when the time comes. But I want to look at screenplays, and here's what I'll say: the 2 winners I think are untouchable. Like Get Out, Jordan Peele, and Call Me by Your Name, James Ivory. I believe the oldest competitive winner, or at least in writing, for at 89 years old, I think, when he won this, if I read correctly. Of Merchant Ivory, which that's what I didn't realize at the time, was that he'd been around for so long. Anyway, great wins, really good lists of nominees underneath that. With the caveat of, in each category, I'm like, well, there's one that I think we could replace. So I'll start with what I think for me was the obvious sort of like one that stood out as the one that was like, we don't need this here. This was very of its time, and everyone was excited. And looking back, no one thinks highly of this, and that is The Disaster Artist, which is the movie directed by and starring James Franco about Tommy Wiseau, the filmmaker who made The Room And this was just at the peak of like, everyone thinks The Room is this great, fun, like kitschy, bad movie that you enjoy, and it's very camp to like it. And so he made a movie about it, and there was this sort of momentum building that like it was going to have a real be a real contender this year. James Franco was like maybe going to be in the best actor conversation. He was going to maybe be the main challenger to Gary Oldman. He won the Golden Globe for comedy this year. And then he got Me Too'd really hard, and everything about his involvement in the movie disappeared, and all that was left was this screenplay. And the movie is fine. I remember seeing it when it came out. It's fine. But I don't love it. Now, the problem is that there's not that many of the movies that I did love this year that are adapted screenplays. A lot of what I think are the best movies that didn't get nominated are original screenplays, which we can maybe talk about when we get to that category. So I'm going to go nerd, and I'm going to do something that will please the people, I think, that are at least two people who are on this with me, and anger a bunch of other people out there who are fools and idiots by saying, I want to replace The Disaster Artist with Rian Johnson's Star Wars The Last Jedi screenplay.
Wake up, dead man. We're doing this. So I will say, when I saw this title on the list, my first thought was, what a sweaty nomination. This feels like that moment where the Oscars start to think, we're not relevant. We're not in with the cool crowd. The cool crowd is talking about The Disaster Artist. And I will confess that I entirely missed the boat on this. Like, I didn't see The Room. I didn't see The Disaster Artist. I don't really go for the it's so bad it's fun to watch this. That's just not a lane I like to spend time in. I'd like to watch good movies that or bad movies that end up being actually good, or low expectations. So I missed the boat on this. Maybe somebody will angrily write into Jen. That's long take review at substack.com. Send all your angry feedback to her directly. But I agree with you. It doesn't belong on the list. I wasn't going to go full nerd and say Last Jedi, but I'm not going to stop you. I think The Last Jedi is a flawed but incredible Star Wars movie. And the fact that all sequels are in adapted screenplay is silly to me still, but we're following the rules, so I'll let you do it.
I support this also. I don't know if I need to explain myself.
You do not. I will jump on this as well, with the understanding that I'd like a little something later on,
Always
or
bargaining.
something from earlier. But yes, I can support this. I didn't really like The Disaster Artist either, so cool. Let's do it.
I mainly was putting out there. I mean, I think, it isn't flawless, but I do think it is a very well constructed screenplay. Like the thematic bricks that are laid out. I'm talking about The Last Jedi, not The Disaster Artist, which is already erased from history. But like the structure of it, I think, is really good. There are some there's some question marks people can have that are justified. There are many questions people have that are unjustified. But I think that would be fun. I mostly did want to put it out there in case there was someone else had like, I have an adapted screenplay I feel strongly about. But like, I didn't find, the only other one I was thinking of was Blade Runner 2049. But I think The Last Jedi is constructed in a more interesting way than the Blade Runner movie is very visual. It got 2 wins in visual components, and I think that's good for that movie. So like, I didn't have anything else on the menu. I don't know if anyone else did have an adapted.
Yeah, so I've been Googling since you started talking, and it really does seem like, because usually Oscar prediction articles have here are the front runners, here are the dark horses, or kind of people who could sneak in here, right? And it really is just those 5. Like, no one knows about any other adapted screenplays, functionally speaking. So I just think it was like a really thin year for adapted as opposed to original, which happens sometimes.
The articles I was looking when I was trying to see, like, am I crazy for putting this forward, for switching it to The Last Jedi, is that was sort of like, well, Call Me by Your Name is going to win. So I don't know. Like, there's these other 4 movies that I guess will be nominated, and that was kind of it in terms of the predictions. So I think,
I feel like the fact that Molly's Game makes it in here, really, that's purely because Aaron Sorkin wrote it, not because everyone's like, let's give Oscars to Molly's Game. So.
All right. We are not here for Molly's Game slander. I actually think Molly's Game is pretty good. All right.
My notes were find 2 movies for adapted screenplay to replace Disaster Artist and Molly's Game. Then I rewatched Molly's Game and I did a strike through on replace Molly's Game because I was like, nah, that's actually pretty good. I actually like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that I don't know. It's not.
All right. We've already taken Allison Janney's Oscar away.
Okay. Oh, that's true.
How much, like, West Wing damage can we do? The last thing I will say, because I don't know that Antonio knows this could actually become a 3-hour podcast just about Last Jedi and my love for it.
I
will say, The Last Jedi is the last gasp of, hey, Hollywood is stuck in franchise land. What if we made good, bold choices in franchise land? And it fails. I'm doing scare quotes, dear listeners, in terms of like the Reddit boards are angry about it. And so I think both Star Wars specifically, but also Marvel retreat into fanboy focus groups and how do we not make anybody mad? And I think our current wobble in both those franchises is because they overcorrected for Last Jedi, which was actually a really good time at the movies.
And to speak to the sort of like, oh, let's do some interesting stuff in our franchises. One of the other nominees in this category, which we've just not mentioned yet, is Logan, the Wolverine movie that was sort of a surprise that it would get in, but also like no one's mentioned changing it yet. I don't know. Antonio might be sitting there just waiting. But I think for the most part, Wonder Woman was under discussion. It seemed not for us, but in the actual time. So I think that, there was a sort of like, oh, we've got like, the legacy sequels kind of work. We're doing some interesting things. This year, not mentioned yet, is the released version of the combined Zack Snyder, Joss Whedon version of Justice League. So in addition to Marvel and Star Wars, DC has also been sort of tumbling from the sort of how do we deal with Wonder Woman and Justice League and how do we get this to work? And they've also just been like, we're going to reboot everything. It's fine. So I agree with you, Greg. We were sort of, we're at the end of an era here. This is the end of something. Where this seems like potentially feasible. Very wild to have an X-Men movie and a Star Wars movie in a writing category, but I think
we gotta take it where we can forget
pretty
it.
Fun. Okay.
Before we move on, can you just remind us who wrote and directed Logan? I can't remember.
Oh, well, I mean, there's 3 people who wrote it, but the director was James Mangold, who co-wrote it.
Oh, what did he direct? I haven't got one of those in a while, so I just had to get my one when we were tangentially related. All right, on to the business.
All right. Antonio, do you want to go back to you?
Yeah, let's go to Best Supporting Actor. Okay. And I think what we need to do here is we need to get the right slate, and then we can talk about winners. If we want to change the winner, I want to change the winner, but I also want to change a nominee, and it was hinted at by my opening, Michael Stuhlbarg. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. From Call Me by Your Name, I think was just essential to that film. I mean, a lot of attention, rightfully so, goes to that monologue that he delivers at the end, which I think is really important to closing out the film, but what the monologue also does, it contextualizes his character throughout the film and how he sort of allows a lot of things to sort of happen. And you sort of wonder, is he oblivious? That monologue tells you he's not, right? And I think that I think it's a true supporting performance. I think that people were also considering Armie Hammer, which I'm not going to put up for multiple reasons, but I think Michael Stuhlbarg was really great. And I would love for him to at least be in the slate. I probably would fight for him to win it, but I also really love Willem Dafoe in The Florida Project. At the very least, I think I would like him to be in the slate of nominees, and then we can talk through who we think should ultimately win. In terms of who to replace, I'll be honest, I have not seen All the Money in the World, so someone else will have to tell me about that. I did not like Three Billboards. I looked back on my 2017 sheet. I only had 2 words written for Three Billboards, and they were loud and hollow. So I would take out. Yeah, I would take out Rockwell or Harrelson. Maybe Harrelson is the easier one to take out. And I love Richard Jenkins. I love Richard Jenkins in anything, so I wouldn't touch that one, and I definitely wouldn't touch Defoe. But again, I haven't seen Plumber, so I'm not sure about that. But of what I've seen, maybe Harrelson out for Michael Stuhlbarg for the nominee, and then we can talk about winner. What do we think about that move, Michael Stuhlbarg?
So
yeah.
I can't believe I'm the one defending Three Billboards on this show. So I liked and appreciated Three Billboards more than most people at the time. And I want to remind everyone, we really did go on a roller coaster of reception with this movie. I remember being supremely confused because I remember going to see it in the theater and being like, whoa, that was heavy, but I'm not really sure what to make of what just happened. And then being like, I guess that was really good. And then coming out and people being like, Three Billboards is amazing. It's the movie of the year. You got to go see it. And then all of a sudden we hit a point in the Oscar season where everyone was like, no, this movie's actually bad. And here's why. It really went on kind of like a PR journey. And so I think it's one of those movies that is kind of hard to be more objective about because of that, or at least for me personally. I do think there are moments in this that are very powerful. I do think Sam Rockwell's performance really takes us on an arc with that character, regardless of how you feel about that character and the way that it's written, because I think that's what a lot of people have a problem with in this movie. So whereas Woody Harrelson, to me, I think from what I remember, and granted, haven't watched this super recently, but from what I remember, his character is less critical to the story. And from what I remember during the Oscar season this year, he was considered sort of a coattail nomination, right? Because the movie overperformed with nominations. And then maybe that's what put a target on its back, probably, if I'm remembering right. But I think he was the one that kind of just got in because people were really excited about the movie during nomination period. So I would be more inclined to take Woody Harrelson out over Sam Rockwell. I also just really love Sam Rockwell. He's great. For Christopher Plummer, I actually also have not seen All the Money in the World, but from what PT said earlier, I do remember the only thing I ever learned about it was that Christopher Plummer was brought on to replace Kevin Spacey, and everyone was like, good on him. You know what I mean? It was like a nobility award as opposed to like how people actually felt about the movie. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I believe that is correct. But it wasn't just sort of like the nobility. It was that like the whole performance, like he was cast and everything was filmed in like 2.5 weeks. So like he got ready in like a few days and then they filmed everything really fast. And then Ridley Scott edited into the movie in a couple of weeks and it got released. Like the whole thing happened like under 2 months before it was supposed to come out and it still made its release date.
So it was like an emergency.
Yeah, it was all very impressive. He's good in that movie. The movie is okay. I have seen it. I have watched it recently. Christopher Plummer is eminently replaceable here, as I believe is Woody Harrelson, who Jen's completely right. He's wonderful. I love both of those actors. I like the performances they give. They're not good enough for this category in this year. So I would actually say that both of them are viable to be replaced. And I would gladly sacrifice either of them for Michael Stuhlbarg in Call Me by Your Name, who I just want to note has a triple threat this year because he also has prominent supporting roles in The Shape of Water and The Post, 2 other Best Picture nominees. What a year.
He really is just an overall underappreciated actor because anytime he shows up in anything, he makes it better. Even if it's like a really tiny part, like even if it's like Boardwalk Empire on HBO, you know what I mean? Like anytime he shows up, he's great. So I in my weak defense of Three Billboards, I didn't mean to say that Michael Stuhlbarg isn't deserving. He's absolutely amazing.
I will just say to carry forward what you were saying about Three Billboards, which again I did not watch at the time. I just sort of got the waves of what people were saying. My memory of it was, it was let me make sure I am saying the name right. Martin McDonagh. And he had done In Bruges, which I really enjoyed. He had done Seven.
Just a renowned Irish filmmaker, as I recall.
Well, yeah, which is why it's not surprising that Jen left the movie confused about whether she could like it or not. Sorry, Jen.
I'm out here defending a movie that no one's willing to defend.
Well, I'm trying to at least
you somehow twist that into.
You're being the most positive, and yet the shots keep coming. So the narrative I remember hearing was this guy who writes movies about like criminals, and particularly like Irish criminals, is trying to write a serious drama about the American South and race relations and gender, like sexual assault crimes, and the gender politics underneath that. And we're going to reward that in a year where we could be rewarding Jordan Peele or Greta Gerwig for actually like telling the stories from their own perspectives. And like, why are we doing that? Why are we letting this white man from another country come in and try to be like, write this serious story, and how that means those stories are really like, doing things successfully, but are still ultimately rooted in a white male experience. And that's not what people were looking for this year, at least the people who were leading the discourse. And, combined with how people actually reacted to the movie. And I think there was some tension there. There's a little proto Green Book in the support for Three Billboards, I guess, is what I think we might be able to say here in the grand tension between the sort of like, but we're all just trying to do the right thing, right? We just need the people to make the right choice eventually, and it'll be okay. Versus like, let's actually listen to marginalized voices and what they have to say and the stories that they tell. So all that being said, Michael Stuhlbarg, great, love it. Greg?
I haven't gotten to weigh in on this yet, so I will just note Michael Stuhlbarg to me is a classic, to steal the parlance of the rewatchables. He's that guy. Every time I watch a movie with him, I'm like, wait, who is that? Is that Kevin Pollak again? No, wait, it's somebody else. It's that other guy I keep forgetting. And Jen said it. He's always great. He even pops up in like the Doctor Strange movies, and you're like, this like side character is oddly compelling, and I kind of like him. And I actually, it's irrelevant, but I might say I actually liked him better in the Bones and All, the later Luca Guadagnino movie. But I think this is a completely worthy nomination, and I absolutely think it should be in there. I would take out Woody. Now, listeners, I was listening while I was being so quiet, and I heard PT open a door, and oh, who's that just walked in that door? Well, my heart would tell me make a strong case for Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi, but I just can't do it when physical media king Tracy Letts is on the table. And so the other big Ladybird movie I had planned is out of pure devotion to Tracy Letts, great American playwright, and just an outstanding advocate for physical media. I have become obsessed in my personal life with like how he and Carrie Coon, also wonderful, seem to have the world's most perfect marriage, where they just watch classic movies every night. If you're not following them on Letterboxd, get on it. They have great recommendations, and they watch something awesome every night. And to speak to the work, I mean, I already made the case for Laurie Metcalf, and I think it's a much smaller part, but it to me, it's a little better than the Judi Dench supporting win, right? Like, he's present in a lot of the film, and he's got that big climactic scene. So if we're pushing Christopher Plummer out with Woody Harrelson, they can go get drinks somewhere. And Christopher Plummer has already won for beginners at this point, which, like, shut the door. That's an incredible performance. I don't need to see this movie. He's got his award. It was for a great performance. I'm going to suggest we slide Tracy Letts in there as well.
So I like that. I've got one potential counter to it, but can we just say we're locking in Michael Stuhlbarg, Call Me by Your Name, replacing Woody Harrelson?
Yes.
Nomination. Okay,
yeah.
Antonio. That's your first 2 points officially spent, because the actor is still
I think we made that official in exchange for the thing you wanted earlier. So
I don't think we made that official.
I don't know if you caught that.
Antonio asked for future considerations, and I'm considering it. So let's see. So I'm updating my notes. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I love the idea of Tracy Letts. I think Tracy Letts is great.
Just as a concept, you love the man.
As a concept, I love him being there. He's not at the Michael Stuhlbarg level, but should be noted, he also has a very solid supporting performance in The Post. Not like nomination worthy like he is in Ladybird, but like it was great to see him there, and he's just like a rock in that movie as well. It is a very different character, but still the ultimate Lettsness of it all was still there. The person I had down for a potential second supporting slot, I did have Michael Stuhlbarg on my list. Antonio, thank you for spending those points. I had Lil Ray Howery, who is Rod, the TSA agent, and Chris's friend in Get Out, who is the comic relief character, but every time he's on screen, he is great. And like his... spoilers, I guess, for anyone who's gotten this far and somehow hasn't seen Get Out. His appearance at the end of Get Out, there was no moment. And again, I'm recognizing that multiple excellent Marvel movies and a Star Wars movie came out with the kind of crowd that those movies attract opening weekend. There was no moment that like a collective emotion passed through a theater, like when he got out of the car at the end of Get Out. Like that's an all-time theater moment for me. Opening weekend, packed theater, downtown LA. Folks like were laughing and sighing and clapping at the same time. And that is partly like the structure of the story, and Jordan Peele got flowers. He has his screenplay, but it is also like that character and that character's performance. So again, I'm being difficult by saying I have another person in the conversation. I'm not like committed to that, but I want to at least advance him and put him out there as I guess it would be instead of Tracy Letts, because I don't want to replace any of the other nominees. Despite our 3 Billboards like question marks, I don't want to replace Sam Rockwell's nomination. He's great in that movie. That movie exists around his character for better or for worse, but that's not the fault of his performance. Willem Dafoe, amazing in The Florida Project. Richard Jenkins is excellent in The Shape of Water. So, again, I'm not necessarily going to go to the mat. I do like Tracy Letts, and I really like him in Ladybird, but I also want to put Little Ray Howery into the discussion.
I just want to throw in my 2 cents that on my list for a future episode of actors we don't appreciate enough, Sam Rockwell is very high. Like, he just gets ignored a lot, and he is somebody I always am excited to see in the theater. I have a huge soft spot for Way, Way Back and for Moon, and like, he's just always dynamic and engaging. So I also don't want to challenge him for the win, despite having not seen that movie. Again, I'm so sorry, Anthony. I'll do better.
I want to be clear. I will challenge him for the win. I don't want to take away his nomination. So to replace him with someone else. We'll get back to talking about the win. But yeah. Jen, what are your thoughts on this?
I kind of like the alternative universe we're creating where Ladybird is the movie that not overperforms, but performs better in nominations. In general, I keep forgetting that Get Out was this year because we keep talking about all these other movies, but I do think we need to make an effort to reward that movie more. I think it deserved more than just the screenplay win that it got. So, because that is the only one that it won, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I'm just putting that Post-it note on the board to be like, Get Out needs more stuff. So if this is the way to do that, I guess I would support what PT's proposing. But
there are other places where Get Out.
Okay.
Stuff. So this wouldn't be the only place. And I'm not talking about actor. I'm not trying to be a goading Antonio. There's some below the line that I've got ideas for Get Out.
I do want to take a moment to say I think you all should be more appreciative that I'm not out here trying to argue for Patrick Stewart in this category or for Hugh Jackman in Best Actor.
I mean, I actually had on my list. I always come up with like I choose the category that I'm like, this is the one that had the most snubs in my mind. And this year was supporting actor. And I did have Patrick Stewart written down. And I had Harrison Ford for Blade Runner 2049, which I don't think should actually move forward. But it's like, I had him on the list. Antonio, where are you in terms of Let's versus Howery?
I would probably go Let's.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that because, again, as Jen was talking, I was like, yeah, there's other places for Get Out. I made my case for that.
And your case was not wrong that was an incredible theater moment. I think it's well known at this point that was not the original ending, that it was going to have a really dark ending to it, which I believe is on the Blu-ray / wherever you see deleted endings now. I don't really know. And like, I don't think the movie is a success unless you give it that kind of pressure valve release at the end. And Lil Ray has gone on to like get a lot of really fun roles, and he's great. And so no disrespect to him. I think it was a real breakthrough performance and fun. Yeah. I think I'm falling into the trouble with Get Out where I think it's this classic genre problem where I think the construction of the movie is so wonderful and smart, and I devalue the performances. So I just want to note, I appreciate you reminding us good genre movies don't happen unless everybody's on the same page and doing a good job at their role. So you're playing a good role even if we don't vote with you.
That's okay. I mean, I will say it's possible that the biggest push for Get Out is going to be when we get to Best Picture, that we make a lot of these other changes lower, and then Get Out's the one that's like, but this was the best movie of the year.
As long as we're staying out of director, I'm okay with this.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
I've spent this entire, hour and 26 minutes nervous for Guillermo del Toro. Like, I won't say any more.
I don't think so. We should stay in supporting actor.
History of devaluing Mexican directors, so we need to tread very carefully.
We must tread lightly.
I'm the only one who's on the right side of history with this. Okay.
Let's finish supporting actor now that we have the slate of nominees.
Yeah, which to be clear now, the nominees would be, I want to be good and do them alphabetically. Yeah. Willem Dafoe for The Florida Project. Richard Jenkins, The Shape of Water. Tracy Letts for Ladybird. Sam Rockwell, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. And Michael Stuhlbarg for Call Me By Your Name.
So let's go around and let's pick, with this slate, who is your winner? For me, Michael Stuhlbarg. How about you all?
I support that.
I support that.
I also haven't seen The Florida Project, so.
Oh,
sorry.
I support that while also I really loved Willem Dafoe in the Florida Project, and it would be great to get him really good.
He gets so many nominations though,
but he hasn't won.
He hasn't won.
He's never won. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I see Willem Dafoe right now looking at Jen and saying, "Thanks for not picking me," from Life Aquatic.
Yeah.
So,
I thought you were Willem Defriend.
Oh.
Well, first of all, Jen, pre-order the Criterion Collection Florida Project. It's coming. They just interviewed the kids, and the kids are all giant ass adults now. So make sure you do that. I was going to say, even before Antonio said it, Stuhlbarg of that list seems the most essential. That movie does not hit without him in that role, with all due respect to Sam Rockwell. So I'm going Stuhlbarg.
I think that's right. Although I think Willem Dafoe is an essential component of the Florida Project, especially given how many people in that movie are not professional actors, and to have him sort of not at the periphery, but sort of an ever-present force in that movie is really good. I will also say, similar to Gary Oldman, he has this is only his 3rd Oscar nomination, and he's only had 1 since then. He was nominated supporting actor for Platoon in 1987, Shadow of the Vampire 2001. And so long gap between those two, another long gap before the Florida Project. The next year he'll get nominated for At Eternity's Gate, the movie everybody's talking about, that everyone remembers and loves, about Vincent van Gogh, which kind of felt like it was going to be, oh man, we got to get Willem Dafoe nominated every year. And then it just hasn't happened again, even though he's been in.
I was expecting you to say Lighthouse. That's shocking to me. Sorry.
No Lighthouse. Yeah.
And no Poor Things. No Poor Things?
No Poor Things.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was Mark Ruffalo got nominated instead.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stuhlbarg's right. I think Stuhlbarg is right. I just wanted to Willem Dafoe's great. I mean, it's hard if Sean Baker hadn't just like cleaned up with Honora and like gotten like this makes sense, like everything's come together for him, I might be feeling stronger about supporting the Florida Project for both nominations and for Willem Dafoe winning, to be like, but let's get this movie recognized. But it's like, wait, Sean Baker's going to be fine. We'll have to work on Willem Dafoe another time. I do think, Antonio's initial recommendation is right. Greg's framing of it is also right. He's essential to that movie, and that's there's certainly a conversation for that monologue being the best, the best performed monologue of the year, the best sort of.
But he's hungry for Armie Hammer? No, we're just not going to take a bite out of that one. All right, continue on.
Let's see, Sam.
I was thinking when PT was kind of going over the context for this year about what was topical. Now I'm picturing, like, in the midst of all the Me Too stuff, Armie Hammer just sitting there being like, I really hope no one finds out about me. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
don't nominate me. It's fine. No. It's all good. Yeah, everyone else, it's good.
Where are we going next?
All right. Well, I just want to do a quick refresher for everyone if they need to work on their ledgers. Antonio, I've credited you because you had so many points. I credited you for the nomination and win. So that's 6 points from you for the Michael Stuhlbarg maneuver. Jen, you spent 4 points in actress for Saoirse Ronan. Greg, a total of 6 points for you, 4 points for Laurie Metcalf's win, 2 points for Tracy Letts' nomination. I have spent 2 points as well.
I wanted on record that if Laurie Metcalf and Tracy Letts would like to adopt me, a grown ass adult, I would accept. So just carry on.
Would that mean you'd have to leave your family?
Yeah, but it's fine. Okay. They'll give me some freedom, but not enough freedom, and I'll yell about it.
Okay, I want to go. I would like to go somewhere below the lines before we joust more at some of these upper categories. Just to speak to sort of something we were talking about before, a few things we were talking about before, tie a few threads together, and I'd like to follow in Antonio's footsteps with a new nomination followed by a new win. And that's in film editing. And, again, I feel bad for the people out there who are really big fans of Three Billboards. But I immediately was like, well, that nomination does not need to happen. We do not need to get a film editing nomination for Three Billboards, a movie with which the editing with which did not resonate with me at all. It didn't it just felt like that was a coattail nomination if people were excited about this movie. And in this category, the winner was Dunkirk, a great win. I'm totally in favor of that. We were still in the when is Nolan going to get his due? Similar to Sean Baker, Christopher Nolan definitely got his due eventually. So I'm a little less worried about preserving all of Dunkirk's victories. The other nominees are Baby Driver, I, Tonya, and The Shape of Water. I would like to replace Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri with Get Out, and then make Get Out the winner. Because I think, similar to maybe what Greg was saying, the structure of the movie, I think it's also how all these pieces are put together, the sequencing, the way they get those real fantastical sequences cut in. And I think all of that's very important, and how we learn the details of what's happening. I think editing is a good place to give that movie another award here down below the line.
I'm on board.
I would also make that argument. I'm ultimately going to agree with you. I would also make that argument about the editing in Dunkirk. To me, this is a pretty deserving winner. I feel like that movie makes no sense if the editing is not
pretty
good.
Incredible.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? It's just such an intricate, because time in that movie is so important, and as with most Christopher Nolan movies. So I just want to give a shout out to Dunkirk. I thought that was it's a pretty good winner. But I love this idea. I was actually, as you were pointing us to this category, I was like, wait a minute, why is Get Out not in here? That's crazy. So
I was going through, watching or rewatching movies in my list. I started with, John Wick Chapter 2 should replace Three Billboards. Then I was like, the Florida Project. Once I saw the Florida Project, I was like, that should replace Three Billboards. And then I rewatched Get Out, and I was like, why is this not winning? And then I saw Dunkirk, and it's like, oh man, Dunkirk. Yeah, that is a good winner. It's not really anti-Dunkirk or saying that it isn't a worthy winner. It's more let's get the stats up for Get Out. Let's give it another number. And this is a place to do that. Dunkirk still gets two awards. They're both sound, but it's still 2. And Nolan's going to get his down the road.
Greg, are you cool with it?
My alternative open for tonight was going to be tick, 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 because I do really love Dunkirk. But that falls in my category of, at some point it was on iTunes for like $5, and I was like, oh, I'm buying Dunkirk. I'm going to watch that all the time. And I have not ever felt in the mood for Dunkirk. So I can't, I mean, it's pretty incredible as a piece of editing, as I recall. And it certainly, I also think, as I recall, it doesn't make the exact obvious choices either. Like, there are moments where one plot line actually gets ahead of another, right? Like, you see something happen in one that hasn't yet happened in the, like, I think it has to do with Tom Hardy in a plane. You lose, Batman. And so, like, I have a lot of trouble replacing it as a winner. And here's my case against Get Out, which, great. Now I'm the guy making the case against Get Out. But I do think Get Out needed to be a little more bold in trusting the audience, because it makes very, very clever choices and then pauses before the ending. And it was like, hey, guess what? We were really clever back there. You know, when that old guy said, like, look at his knees, guess what? He was looking at his knees. And like, that's not exactly right, but like, you know, it's to me, it's just a little bit of the harbinger of the Netflix, you're not actually watching this, where it was so clever. But I personally prefer when movies are that clever and you find it on the rewatch because they didn't throw it out to you. But
I'm usually with you, Greg, on that general concept, but I do feel like in this specific case, it is a stylistic choice that really contributes to the ethos of the film. You know what I mean? Like, it has like a sense of kind of snarky style to it, and it's a little bit more playful than another version of this, a similar type of movie. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it is part of the Jordan Peele experience.
And the case for it, PT already voiced, but I want to just echo something like the sinking into the, what is that called? I forget what that's called. Sunken place. The sunken place. That I should have been able to piece that together. That is something that became iconic and well known. I am not a person of color, but the people of color in my life who I've talked about with that film say like that represents visually like this feeling they've never been able to articulate. And that is writing and that is performance, but I think it's really editing in terms of how that's presented. And even just talking about it, I hear the teacup spoon. So I won't stop you, sir, even though I'm a proponent of Dunkirk.
It's funny now that you're saying that. I'm like, wait, should it have gotten sound mixing instead of editing? But that's I like it in editing. I think
is this the year that, because Dunkirk won both of those, that it convinced them to collapse the categories? That's
a good question. I don't think the collapse happens for another few years, but this might have been when the conversation,
like a tipping point.
It was this run of movies where every year the same movie was winning these
both,
two categories that they were like, why do we have these as two categories? Because it's this, and then 1917, a couple years later, I forget what it is, the year right after this. But
I would not call Dunkirk a stereotypical war movie by any stretch, but I feel like the fact that it got both of the sound categories is classic. Things go boom. Oscars. We
didn't talk about it. I also feel like there's like 3 or 4, like similar to Oppenheimer, there's like 3 or 4 potential best supporting actor nominees from Dunkirk that like could have been in the conversation in a weaker year.
Hey, where's Tom Hardy?
I mean, great. It's a
Barry Keoghan.
Where's
Gotham City.
Where's Cillian Murphy? Where's Mark Rylance?
Blowing things up.
Mark Rylance being quietly courageous and then dying. That's where he is. Oh no, Sundice.
I have one more editing thought, and then I think we're ready to move on.
Yes.
Doesn't Phantom Thread have really good editing?
Yes.
Why isn't it?
But I had another place where I wanted to reward.
Oh, okay, Thread. Sure. Okay, we'll take us there.
Okay. It's to original score, where I want to give it to Johnny Greenwood's Phantom Thread score over The Shape of Water. We haven't really talked about The Shape of Water, and eventually, we will. Maybe now it's time. I don't know. I like The Shape of Water. I think The Shape of Water is very good. I think it is also particularly good at being a really weird movie to have won a number of Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. It's a weird monster movie about a creature from the Black Lagoon, like Fishman, and it's awesome that like people were just like, yeah, we love this movie, we're gonna vote for it, I guess. I don't know if it's gonna hold up to stay Best Picture after we're done talking about all this, but good for that movie. That said, the score was good. Like, the score's good. This kind of feels like we like this movie, I guess this is a place to reward it. I think what Johnny Greenwood, who is from Radiohead and has scored a few Paul Thomas Anderson movies, I think what he does with sort of the both the sort of quiet notes and also the sort of big motifs that will come up occasionally really works for Phantom Thread and elevates it. So I do like that. Hard to not be advocating for our boy John Williams and The Last Jedi. But I've already given The Last Jedi a little extra love. I'm not going to do that. If someone else wants to, they're welcome to. But I was going to propose the Phantom Thread takes over original score.
I actually think Last Jedi is the worst Star Wars score of the 9. Ryan temp tracked it with a lot of old themes, and John Williams was just like, sweet, let's just do that. And so you get, like, in the middle of the Battle of Crate, it's like the Death Star chase from Return of the Jedi. And you're like, this doesn't make any sense. So again, Rian Johnson, flawless. Last Jedi, flawless. But I'm not going to advocate for its score.
If Greg won't do it, who will?
The porgs in Jen's background.
That's a great point.
Wait, are there?
That's my porg.
There are no porgs in my backpack.
I just took a flyer. I assume there's porgs. There's porgs in any room you're in, Jen.
Oh, that's probably true. I'm sure there's one like underneath something somewhere.
I'm good with Phantom Thread and score.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I mean, I really like the Shape of Water score. I think it really is plays a key role in making that movie very dreamlike. But I understand. But the Phantom Thread score is great. So
yeah, it's not meant as disrespect for The Shape of Water. It also is Johnny Greenwood's been nominated a few times. Johnny Greenwood, for people, there's a number of people out there who will have very complicated feelings about Johnny Greenwood right now for geopolitical reasons, so they may not want him to have ever won. In 2017, I would love Johnny Greenwood to have won an Academy Award, and this is a good place to do it, because I don't know if he would have won for There Will Be Blood. We haven't gotten there yet, so I like that. Right. I also considered replacing Dunkirk's score with Blade Runner 2049, which is also Hans Zimmer, and I think is more iconic and stands out more, but I'm not going to actually spend the point on that when I just took a win away from Dunkirk. So let Dunkirk keep that nomination. That's okay.
All right, what's next?
Can I ask how people feel about Remember Me, which I do not remember, in original song?
I like it. It's a great song.
And it's super crucial to the movie. That's like waterfalls.
Okay. Fine. Then I will.
My general rule is, if it's not a credit song, I appreciate the win, and that's one that is a big part of it. Jen, do you want to sing it for Antonio real quick?
I was tempted to do that in the opening when PT wrote the joke for me of like "Remember Us," but it's hard to beat Benjamin Bratt being like "Remember Me." Like, it's pretty good.
Well, Antonio, what were you thinking? Was it bringing up the Sufjan song?
Yeah, I love Mystery of Love, and I feel I like that. It was like a perfect. It was just perfect music to go with that era and with the film. But honestly, I didn't even watch The Greatest Showman, but I like that "This Is Me" song, and that is definitely like a big part of that movie. But I'm okay if you like that, then fine. We'll leave that. I'll leave it alone.
When you realize the significance of the song at the end of Coco is just waterworks all day. It's crazy.
It's and there's like 4 different characters that sing it. It's so present throughout the whole movie. And also, not that this is a reason to keep it, but I did just read this today. Remember Me winning this award made Robert Lopez the first double EGOT It was the first. He's the first person to have won 2 each, at least 2 each.
Wow.
Not a reason to keep it, but
good for him.
I like where your head's at, Antonio. That looks like a good place to squeeze out a win, but yeah. Jen, let me ask you this. You're usually our expert. I'm assuming you like Coco as a win in animated feature. Is there anything you want to say? Because usually you got changes you want to make there.
I mean, so it's like the only good movie that's in there. No, my apologies to Boss Baby, I guess. I'm just kidding. So yeah, so I did have one thing on my list I wanted to do in this category. It is highly controversial, but I feel like considering the lineup here, I don't know if anyone's actually going to complain, but I wanted to replace Boss Baby, which I don't understand what that's all
Agreed.
about.
Don't even name another title. Just it's gone.
But
4 nominees this year.
Paddington 2 came out this year.
Oh.
And that is
a point of order.
No.
It did not. A point of order. It didn't. In America, it came out in January of 2018. So it's eligible next year.
Wait, but isn't the cutoff in January?
Because it came out in the UK in 2017. But yeah, there were 3 movies that I thought would actually be relevant that were
it's
not.
On the Wikipedia page.
I understand that, but Paddington 2, You Were Never Really Here, and The Death of Stalin were the 3 movies. I will say this, Jen, it's in the Google Doc. These are the 3 movies that are not eligible this year.
Oh, I didn't get that
Paddington
in the
2
Google
is
Doc.
Because I figured we'd want to nominate it if we could.
Okay.
I apologize for
Way to rain on my parade for this. Yeah, and I got nothing. I went through the list of animated movies I thought came out this year, and I was just like, should I be spending points on the Lego Batman movie? Like I kind of want to save points for other things, but low-key replace Boss Baby with the Lego Batman movie. I don't know. So the other thing I want to note is that I have never actually seen Ferdinand, but it just so happens that today it's the last week of school for my kids, and my daughter came home while we were leaving school this afternoon after I picked her up, and I was like, oh, what'd you do in class today? And it's the last week, so like they do not a lot of like actual work, and so she was like, we watched this movie called Ferdinand, and it kept showing the bull's butt, and I was just like, and then she just wouldn't let it go. She just kept repeating butt over and over again, and I was just like, what is going on with this movie? So that movie's on my watch list, not because I want to watch it. I'm watching. I'm like, I've got my eyes on it. I don't know what's going on.
Just into bull butts.
Yeah, it was really, and then it sounds like the teacher tried to explain it as that the school had some sort of sensor filter, and so every time it glitched, every time the butt got a close up or something like that, because the school has a thing that's like, make sure the kids don't see butts. I don't know what's going on. I have to watch this movie for myself, I guess, and see what the bull butt situation is. But that's sad that's all I have to contribute to this category for this year. But Coco is great. All-time Pixar movie.
Yeah.
A great winner.
I'm not going to mess with Coco, but just a shout out to Loving Vincent, which is one of those films that is animated by 800 paintings. And, I always find that like the stop motion has a little edge because people are like, stop motion is really hard. That is also a very hard animation style and deserves a little more love. It wasn't particularly good. It is another big Saoirse Ronan performance. She's a prominent voice actor in that. But I'm not going to unseat Coco. Do I feel confident saying that? Coco might be the last time Pixar was truly great, especially in terms of like originality and like, let's do something with our considerable powers.
It certainly feels like it's the peak of like late era Pixar.
I really like Toy Story 4.
Okay. That's fair.
And
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Nope. Yep. They just came in.
No, it's great. Toy Story.
That's not your opinion. Nope. You're not allowed to have that opinion.
Forky, I am trash.
Forky.
But I mean, just saying the title Toy Story 4 demonstrates that it was like the end of the original Pixar.
Sure.
I mean, how do you feel about Elio next month this month will change our minds, but I think Pixar is struggling in sequelville right now, Greg, including Coco 2, which is coming out soon.
Oh no. Do you still remember me? Greg, how do you feel about Soul?
Soul, like, do we have one? or
I mean,
Well,
like
the movie
yes.
Soul, which was in 2020.
Lost in the ether of the pandemic, a December
surprisingly
2020.
good and nicely moving, but I think a little too wacky for my pure Pixar love.
Okay, just to add one, because we don't have enough things to say. But just to add, I didn't watch these, so I can't speak to it. But I'm just relaying in case there's people out there who are like, "Why are you not going to bring this up?" Under Best Foreign Language Film, the winner was A Fantastic Woman from Chile. But I have heard a lot of very positive things about The Square, which is a movie by Ruben Östlund, who got more Oscar success a couple years later with Triangle of Sadness. And when Triangle of Sadness was making its run, I just heard from multiple people like, yeah, that movie's pretty good. You should watch The Square. That's the good movie that he made. That's like better than Triangle of Sadness. So I didn't get around to watching it. I'm not going to put any points on it. I have no firsthand experience. I'm just going to note there might be people out there who are like, no, The Square should have won Best Foreign Language Film this year, because that movie has at least some staying power, I guess, in the conversation. Okay. Are there any other? I had a few like little below the line things I don't really want to even bother talking about because we've been talking a long time. But does anyone else have anything below the lines they would like to bring up? All right, we didn't figure out actor, and we have not talked about director or picture. I am going to put it out there. I do not want to change best director or anybody in the lineup for director. Personally, but I'm willing to hear from other people. I know Jen agrees about the winner. She's been protecting Guillermo at all costs, and I respect that. I do think we will change picture, and I don't think that's a problem because there's always splits, or not always, but it's not that odd to have splits. But I don't know. How about this? Let me ask this question. What do people think about The Shape of Water?
So I was very happy with its haul when those Oscars actually happened. And since then have been shamed for liking this movie.
Oh no.
By listening to other critics and the way people talk about it in retrospect, it was almost like it was like an embarrassment that this one director and picture and one like was the sort of top award winner at the end of the night. I usually try to watch at least one movie for each of these episodes that we do. That's a low bar, I know, but I'm like, I got to at least watch something in preparation for this. And for this year, the one thing I knew I needed to rewatch was The Shape of Water, because I feel like so much discourse has churned since this year that I was like, maybe I was hallucinating when I liked this movie. Maybe this movie is terrible and everyone else is right. No, they're wrong. This is a great movie. It's magical. It is delightful. It somehow manages this alchemy of very adult, mature content with this kind of like fairy tale, dreamlike, very romantic, and very wholesome energy. And PT's right. It's really weird, but it's good weird. And the thing I was struck by when I rewatched it this time was it manages to balance and juggle so many different themes and different ideas and different influences. Like it is a monster movie, but it's also a lonely people story, and it's also this love letter to old Hollywood. Like I totally forgot about the black and white like old Hollywood singing and dancing sequence in the second act of this movie. I think it's the second act, which was wonderful. And so I think that's my theory as to why it originally won, because it's kind of doing the when parents try to put vegetable puree in their kids' pancakes, when you try to feed a dog a pill with cheese, like this was use the trappings of a classic Oscar bait movie of like, wasn't old Hollywood grand, and like let's remember how glamorous Hollywood is, and movie making isn't movie making swell. It has all the appeal of that, but then manages to sneak in all this, like when you stop and think about it, truly bizarre stuff. And it pulls it off. And I think that's what the magic of this movie is. So I'll step down now.
I think The Shape of Water is great too. I don't want to change the win for Best Director. I will say I wish that I could figure out a way as just a nomination to get Luca Guadagnino into director. The only one that I could possibly take out, and I don't think I'm going to get the support for this, is Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk. But Dunkirk, I also really like that film, right? So I can accept that I'm not going to get that. I'm going to dig in my heels on actor, and then we're going to see what's going to happen in picture. But yeah, what do you all think?
I will just note, I would support replacing Christopher Nolan with Luca Guadagnino in director if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to spend the points. I mean, I love Christopher Nolan and I love Dunkirk. Again, it's a weird sort of knowing the future, but it's just like, oh, Nolan's time is going to come. And like, if he doesn't even get nominated for Dunkirk for director, that feels a little bit like, oh my God, like it's even more so that he gets this payoff. So I would be okay with that. And I also think Call Me By Your Name is just a step above Dunkirk. Like, I think we've got 4 movies that are like all-timer movies in this conversation. I don't know if everyone agrees with me, but Call Me By Your Name, Ladybird, Get Out, and Phantom Thread. I think like those, and so I think having those 4 in the directing category makes sense. They're all in Best Picture already. And Luca for Call Me By Your Name is the only one that's not. Again, if people really don't want that, that's okay. But I had it written down as something I didn't want to do, but I thought we should do, which is just my way of being like, I hope someone else does this. But I thought that would be the quote unquote right thing to do. So I support that.
PT is coming hard after Antonio's points tonight. If you look across the last couple hours,
Yep.
A man had 17. I don't know if you noticed.
Just trying to get him to spend down. Yeah.
So I will say I am not opposed to the Guadagnino for Nolan swap. It is hard to really champion Dunkirk when he wins in such a similar lane for a superior film, which is Oppenheimer. I will say something I don't understand about Dunkirk is why, and maybe this is more what I don't understand about movie fans. I don't understand why Interstellar is like the one we hold up and it's like, oh, this is the one, like it's a masterpiece. It's like really high on the list of like everybody's 4 favorites on Letterboxd. At the time when I saw Interstellar, I was like, that's an okay episode of Doctor Who, and I stand by that review. Like, if you have watched like time travel storytelling before, there is nothing like fresh and original in Interstellar. I'm coming for you, Interstellar fans. So I want Dunkirk to be more highly regarded than Interstellar, but I'm not at the point where I'm saying Dunkirk is like the superior Nolan movie. And what were we? We were in the category of director. So my thoughts on director as a whole, I would really love the symbolism of giving Jordan Peele Best Director, but I can't really take this away from Guillermo. And full disclosure, I once met Guillermo del Toro at a book signing, and since that moment, I have thought of him as one of my best friends in this world. So I can't take it away from him. The case, if I were to make one against it, would be that I think Pan's Labyrinth and Nightmare Alley are superior to Shape of Water. And that's more about Nightmare Alley not getting its due than it is about Shape of Water overperforming. But I'm not going to take that from Guillermo. And so it's just editorializing at this point.
I'm excited to go back and watch Nightmare Alley knowing that take, because I remember being like, oh, okay. I was a little bit let down. I'm with you on Interstellar, though. My feeling was Dunkirk was like this big return to form after going to see Interstellar and being like, oh, this is what it's like to watch a Christopher Nolan movie if you don't like Christopher Nolan. But which I've softened on. I'm not as anti-Interstellar now, but I don't really get the love for it. I think it's just another generation. Just also going to note that Steven Spielberg in a better year, or no, in a lesser year, I should say, would be nominated for The Post, and that would be absolutely fine. That movie's well constructed, as Greg said earlier, very sort of process driven, people doing their jobs, and he's just an old master doing great stuff. But yeah, there's no space for it. I don't know. Jen, where are you on Luca? Just in a nominee, Luca replacing Christopher.
So purely as revenge for challengers, I support this swap. I think very much in the way that we know that Christopher Nolan is going to get his flowers in a big way later on in his career. I think we could argue the reverse, that Luca Guadagnino hasn't quite gotten there yet with the Academy. He's gotten a little bit of recognition, but never had that, that a big nomination, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm not wrong about that, right? Like, okay. So I think I would be perfectly happy swapping those two out. I really like Dunkirk. I do think the directing in it is very good. It pulling that movie off, I think, is a big feat. It does feel a little bit, if we look at this lineup as a whole, it does feel like he is the kind of, not token, that's too strong a word, but like he's to check off the technical achievement box. You know what I mean? In comparison to a lot of these like quote unquote smaller movies, or kind of less blockbustery movies. So I think that's probably why he ended up in here over Luca Guadagnino. But I think I'm okay. I support this swap.
Luca is definitely under awarded. He's got a lot of film festival things, but like not a lot happening after Call Me by Your Name in terms of his award list. Got the Robert Altman Award at the Independent Spirit Awards around the release of Suspiria. I don't know what that means. Anyway, okay, Antonio, you didn't even really propose that, but do you want to spend 2 points to make that change?
I do. I would love it.
Okay.
I just want to say on Luca, maybe this year it doesn't, like, you throw a little Julia Roberts in the mix. You catch Ayo Edebiri and Andrew Garfield at great moments in their careers. Seems like something
Michael
could happen.
Stuhlbarg also going to be in After the Hunt.
Maybe
he's the lucky charm.
There you go. Okay, so I don't want to. I'm gonna toot my own horn a little bit here. I did like a mock draft, basically. I did a mock of like where I thought things were going to end up around this point of the evening. I didn't know we'd be 2 hours in. I thought it would be like an hour 40 in, but that's I didn't get that part right. But I was like, where are we going to end up? How are we going to have spread the wealth? Like with ideas of what I was thinking of, what I thought other people would want to do. And we are basically where I thought we were going to be, which is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 movies that have 2 awards each over the course of this. We have a few that I don't think are going to change. Blade Runner 2049 with its 2 actual awards, visual effects and cinematography. Coco, animated feature and song. Dunkirk, the 2 sound awards. And then we have Call Me by Your Name. Again, with 2 sort of outstanding. Actor and picture are still outstanding. Call Me by Your Name has adapted screenplay and supporting actor. Get Out has original screenplay and film editing. Ladybird has actress and supporting actress. Phantom Thread has score and costume design. The Shape of Water has director and production design. There's a couple that there's other categories out there, but those are the sort of the main movies here. I think the big question now is, with actor and picture, like, is it important or not important for us to have those be 2 different movies? Or those, because then, which is potentially just compromising between things. Or do we want it to be like the same movie, and who wants to make the case that it's the same movie and what that movie would be?
I don't think they need to be the same movie. I mean, I would be thrilled if they were the same movie if it were my movie. But I mean, like, where are we? I had a general sense as to where everyone was, right? I thought, like, well, PT, now you've revealed yourself as the Get Out person. Greg, I assume Ladybird. I'm the Call Me by Your Name person. And Jen, where are you?
I mean,
Shape of Water?
Thor Ragnarok.
I'm gonna. You mean, are we talking just for Best Picture, or are we just talking about overall? I mean, I was happy that The Shape of Water won Best Picture, but that's not to say that I wouldn't be okay with one of these other movies winning, as long as we protect director. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm willing to give up Best Picture to reward a movie that is underrepresented if we keep Guillermo in director.
Well, here's what I'll say is at this point, no movie of the sort of, I think, top movies is quote unquote underrepresented. Everyone's pretty equally represented in terms of wins. I think the question is, after 2 hours, is boiling down to like, what's the movie we want to put forward?
I would say that if I'm looking at this list, because I think when you have a list that has so many strong contenders, minus 1 or 2, then I think you have to start thinking about what is our rubric for making one rise to the top, right? And I think for this particular year, it is for me between The Shape of Water and Get Out because of the sort of creativity innovation factor. I think both of them are doing really innovative things with both genre and storytelling. Like that, those are, to me, those are the two most. Even if some of these other movies are immaculately executed and thrilling and have some of the best writing and, you know, all these things we've been talking about for the past 2 hours, at the end of the day, I feel like it's between Shape of Water and Get Out.
So what if we had Timothée Chalamet win Best Actor and Get Out win Best Picture? That kind of leaves Greg on the outside, but Greg also did get actress, and supporting actress.
We gave him Tracy Letts.
I was going to say, I closed down my document of things I wanted when we got Tracy Letts. Like, I have no pony. Like, I really love Ladybird, and it would be my favorite on that list. But, you know, for Best Picture, I like to think of what so best represents what that year was about. And I think Jen just laid out a very good case that this is the year of genre play and welcoming them into the tent of the Academy. I do think you know, Call Me by Your Name, it does represent an important step in the careers of like everybody in that movie. It just doesn't in some ways feel, it's almost like I don't want it to win Best Picture because I like it being the quiet thing where like, yeah, but the real one was this one, right? And it feels like that's how I came to Call Me by Your Name, which was like, you know, everybody ignored this one, but you should really see this one because it's really good.
For sheer emotional impact, for like a love story that I will go back to and that will destroy me every time I see it, it is Call Me by Your Name. That's the reason that it's my number one. Your reasoning, Jen, for Get Out and Shape of Water, I think is impeccable. Ladybird probably on this list is my second favorite behind Call Me by Your Name, but I also understand that it is less revolutionary in terms of moving forward like cinema. But it is just an excellently crafted, written, acted everything movie, right? It's just like perfect. So I mean, I don't know. Like, PT has moved this conversation so that these two things are tied together, and I like kudos to you for doing this way. But I think this should be a separate thing. I think Timothée Chalamet should win because Timothée Chalamet should win, and then and then for Best Picture, I mean, fine. I'm okay. I'm okay actually with either Shape of Water or Get Out. Like Jen, I'm okay. So I can give up on Call Me by Your. I sort of figured that I was going to be alone on putting that forward as number one. So fine. But are you going to give me? Do I get Timmy?
Yeah, I
mean,
mean,
you were always getting Timmy. You were always getting Timmy.
It was at least 3-1, but I think it was actually 4-0 that Timmy should get it.
The digging into the heels and wanting to not sort of lock that in earlier was not meant to sort of be too much gamifying of it all, but it was like if there was real momentum too, but we should name Call Me by Your Name Best Picture. I didn't know if I wanted to not have that performance at the core of Get Out get rewarded. I feel like if it wins Best Picture or if it would win, you know, I don't think we should touch director, but if we were like, let's actually, you know, without removing the Guillermo del Toro element, removing the history of but problematic history of the Oscar Fairy Flashback outcomes in the directing category, you know, I think that maybe we would be having a different conversation about like, actually, Greta Gerwig should win. That would be great. Or Jordan Peele should win. And then I think a win there would be like, would for me relieve pressure on feeling like with something, Get Out's got to win one of these big awards. So if it could win somewhere else. So that's kind of where I'm thinking. Like, to me, I think Get Out's the one that's had the most staying power. Get Out's the one that like is still the most resonant here. Not like the be all end all. Get Out's the like one of the only movies of the 2010s that's on the Sight and Sound all time movie list in the top 100, and the only movie from this batch from this year. So I'm like, Get Out needs to have one of these big awards. That's like why I was sort of holding on for Daniel Kaluuya. I do think like I think I'm alone in thinking he gave a performance that was as good as Timothée Chalamet's. Like, they are equally worthy, but I think Chalamet's is equally worthy. Like, so if all three of you are like, yes, that Chalamet is the winner, I am okay with that. But I did want to, but that linkage was to sort of be like, but I do want to make sure there's something happening for Get Out in these upper reaches beyond just, I mean, all due respect, I love giving it the film editing category, but like that winning that below the line award to me wasn't enough of a reward for that movie. When I think in a movie, again, with 4 all-timers, it's the one that's kind of at the top in the cultural relevance to me.
When I think back to this award season at the time, I remember thinking, well, I'm certainly relieved that Get Out won the screenplay category and it got something. Thank goodness. But also at the same time, I remember thinking that if I were to pick one movie that I had hoped would get more, it would be Get Out. So I move that we keep Guillermo del Toro, give Timothée Chalamet Best Actor, and we get Daniel Kaluuya is going to win for Judas and the Black Messiah.
That's also a great point.
Right? So he'll be fine.
He's got that pants.
Granted, is for supporting, not lead, but right? No.
Yes.
Wasn't there category fraud that year?
It was category fraud.
It was supporting. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
It should be lead, but it was supporting.
Sure. But he has an Oscar. So he's okay. And I think that that distribution feels right to me.
Okay, so repeat that again, the distribution.
So Best Picture, Get Out.
Okay.
Director, Shape of Water.
Guillermo del Toro,
Actor,
yes.
Call Me By Your Name.
Timothée Chalamet. I love that.
Points are coming from PT, or are they coming from you, Jen?
Oh, I was going to take the points, even though Jen technically said it, but I've been the one like pushing for Get Out from the beginning. I said it first an hour and 20 minutes ago. So
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm not going to stop that, but let me just say, I want Jordan Peele to stay hungry because there were a lot of elements I really liked in Us and more so in the third one. Nope.
Yes.
But I'm a little worried that giving him Best Picture right out of the gate just like lets him lean into his weaker tendencies. But I do think this film captured something about America in that moment and probably in this moment still that we really need to see. PT, how many points to invoke the Best Casting Oscar for this ceremony retroactively? Because I do think, well, actually there are a lot of incredible ensembles here and we're still a little fuzzy on how best casting will work. But it seems to be, that like, what is the cast that really elevates each other? And I'd put Get Out really high on that list. We haven't mentioned, I yanked Allison Janney's Oscar away. You could make a strong case for Bradley Whitford. I mean, there's a problem of nominating the white guy in the story about the Black experience, but he's really good in that. You shouted out Allison Williams. I would also shout out Lakeith Stanfield, who it's not a big part, but he nails that kind of cold open. The weirdo brother, Catherine Keener, like they're all really, really good in that film. So I don't have the points available to make this change, but just a shout out that as we start to look to the best casting Oscar, this is the kind of film I'd want to see take something like that.
Yeah, that's fair. The best ensemble at the SAG Awards did go to Shape of Water, but that was more the like march towards victory, though that does have a great cast. As I believe Antonio has mentioned before, 3 Billboards won at BAFTA, which was, I think, why I don't know if we said this on mic. This might have been off mic. The sort of the uncertainty going into the Oscars of like, is 3 Billboards going to actually win? Because it won 2 acting awards. It didn't get anything below the line, but then it was like Guillermo del Toro won, but then it was like, is it going to split? What's going to happen? So anyway, I hear you, Greg. I think that does that would make sense.
While we're talking about Shape of Water ensemble, shout out to Doug Jones playing the fish, who I recently saw at a convention, and he was not promoting himself as the fish at all. He was only promoting himself as the dead guy from Hocus Pocus, which may be where I am geographically, but it was like, yeah.
Yes,
I don't know. Like but like everybody was in line with those headshots. I was like, he was like the centerpiece of a Best Picture winner. Anyway.
Okay. I'm gonna recap what we have done so far, working from the bottom of the list up, bottom according to the Wikipedia ordering of the categories. And film editing, I spent a total of 3 points getting Get Out a nomination in place of 3 Billboards, and then giving it the win over Dunkirk. So that was my 3 points were spent there. Look at me below the line. I spent 2 points getting Phantom Thread a win in original score over Shape of Water. I spent 2 points getting The Last Jedi a nomination over replacing The Disaster Artist in adapted screenplay. Greg spent 4 points for Laurie Metcalf to replace Allison Janney as the winner in supporting actress. Greg also spent 2 points for Tracy Letts in Ladybird to replace Christopher Plummer in a supporting actor nomination. Antonio spent 2 points for Michael Stuhlbarg from Call Me By Your Name to replace Woody Harrelson's nomination, then spent 4 points for Michael Stuhlbarg to replace Sam Rockwell as winner in supporting actor. Jen spent her only 4 points of the
thrifty subtraction over there
for Saoirse Ronan from Ladybird, replacing Frances McDormand in 3 Billboards as a winner in Best Actress. Antonio, after a long night of waiting for the polls to close, finally got Timothée Chalamet in lead actor to replace Gary Oldman in a win. That's 4 points. I may already said that. Antonio's last 2 points were for Luca Guadagnino to get a nomination in Best Director, replacing Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk. And I spent 6 points for Get Out to replace Shape of Water, winning Best Picture. How do we feel?
How many points does Antonio have left? Did we spend down his?
Well, you did. You winnowed it down.
I have it that Antonio spent 12 points, so he has 5 left. Jen spent 4 points, so she has 6 left. Greg spent 6 points, so he has 7 left. I spent 13 of my 14 points. I only have 1 point left. I will be the pauper next go around.
I think this is the first time we haven't had to donate points.
I think that's right. I think because we had so many changes we wanted to make in the upper levels, but everyone had their corner, I think, that was kind of working in places. So, yeah. All right.
So my takeaway is I think there's a lot of movies have been bad for a while. We need to get back to when movies were good. And this is not that long ago. I mean, it is notably pre-pandemic, and a lot of our troubles pop up out of that situation. But I left this exercise thinking this was a really fun movie year. And I don't know if it's gotten lip service in our conversation enough, but just the variety, right? Like that Antonio mapped us out that we each had something we really loved. And, we also appreciated what each other loved and so on. But there were lots of different types of films, and it was just a good movie year, which if anybody had asked me, I would not have said 2017 was a banger of a year.
My one regret is that I did not make time to watch the Safdie brothers' Good Time.
Good movie.
And no, I was kind of hoping someone would bring it up because they watched it. But I was like, oh, maybe if I watch that in time, I can sneak that in somewhere. Maybe Robert Pattinson can, but the director was so stacked that I don't think that would have happened anyway. But I just wanted to give a shout out. I'm still hoping to watch that movie because I think that is the performance that kind of shifts Robert Pattinson to the actor he is now.
Yeah, it feels like it potentially, and maybe not a downside of the year, but a downside for at least me in thinking about this year, that there are a few of those movies where it's someone's bubbling, and the Safdie brothers and Robert Pattinson in Good Time. I mean, Noah Baumbach had been around for a while, but the Meyerowitz stories is very, very good. Those are 2 movies I didn't get a chance to go back and rewatch, but feel like in another year they would have been certainly contenders for me to bring to an exercise like this. But there's so many people up high, so many movies that are stronger than that it's hard to get it all in. But yeah, those are both very good movies. And Good Time for people who, if they liked Uncut Gems and movies of that ilk and have not watched Good Time, you should do that. Another sort of bad night in New York with a lot of pressures and anxieties. It's a good one.
I did watch the trailer and was very stressed out. So
it is indeed stressful. All right. Well, I do just want to note here at the end, I really look forward. I'm excited to put together all the our charts of what this is going to look like. But for those who have stuck around, who are this far in, as of recording, 2 hours and 20 minutes in, referenced a little bit earlier, we think the next step in these Oscar Fairy flashbacks is to sort of close things off with these 5 years that we have done, and to then do the 5 years before this. So the next year would be the 2009 Oscar year, 2008 movie year, which is the Slumdog Millionaire is the big winner. And the sort of like a lot of consternation was around the nominations or lack thereof for The Dark Knight, which was sort of a big deal at the time. And of course, other movies there as well. So I think that's the plan. I don't know, if we're all going to think that's a good idea. But at least at various points, that's what we had talked about, was to go back further into the past. So instead of just going forward and getting too close too soon to our recent past. So for those of people who like this long to still be listening, that's what we are thinking of doing without having any clear agenda of when we will get around to doing that, especially if that means we have to watch more movies because it's further in the past. And I watch a ton of movies for these, but these other people have lives, so that you may not be able to be like, I'm going to just knock off a dozen movies. So it may take longer for us to feel prepared for those. But that's what our thoughts are.
2009 is a terrible Oscars.
Rough. There's lots of changes we can make. Justice for a 3 Billboards fan. Just wait and you'll get some In Bruges love in X number of months.
I also think the Banshees of Inisherin is phenomenal. I just rewatched that, and that's
when we get to that year, forget
I'm all in for F1 purely on my Kerry Condon high from rewatching Banshees of Inisherin.
Colin Farrell, best actor that year. My points are already allocated to replace
Antonio. Where can people find you? Because I really want to go to bed.
Yeah, sorry.
They can find me on Letterboxd at Alefano, AELEFANO. Greg, where can they find you?
They can find me on Letterboxd on Canon, EYEONCANON, where I will be logging even more screenings of Mission Impossible. And then it's Wes Anderson season, baby. Yeah, it is. PT, where can people find you?
They can find me on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. You can also find the show there at LTR Pod, or find us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review, where you can follow us wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. Just hit subscribe or follow us there. Jen, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sopchockchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI. And you can find me on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. Woo!
Now, Jen, I know you're happily married, but before you met your husband, would you have dated a fish?
And stop recording. Thanks for listening. You can follow The Long Take Review on Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. Subscribe for free, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. You'll also receive written reviews of new films with Oscar buzz, as well as any new installments of prop franchises like Star Wars and Marvel.